Chapter 34:11. Step on you, Joan? You said that the person who wants to see me outside the city is called Joan? Qi Gaoming stepped forward and grabbed his subordinate's shoulders tightly with both hands. His entire body was trembling with excitement. Of course, Qi Gaoming's excitement was not a display of joy. Instead, it was filled with surprise, and his breathing was even more chaotic. To Qi Gaoming, Zhuowen was definitely a nightmare that he did not want to have. Originally, he thought that Zhuowen would never return after leaving the massacre, Heavenly Region. But now he actually heard this name again. The fear in his heart for Zhuowen once again welled up in his heart. City Lord, that person's name is indeed Zhuowen. The subordinate grimaced in pain from Qi Gaoming's grip, and his words were a little disorderly. He did not understand why Qi Gaoming was so excited after hearing this name. All right, you may leave first. After the subordinate left, Qi Gaoming regained his calm, and his gaze immediately became incomparably gloomy. It should be someone with the same name. That Zhuowen has only left the massacre Heavenly Region not long ago, so it's impossible for him to return so quickly. Furthermore, it would be even more difficult for him to return to the massacre Heavenly Region from the outside world. Qi Gaoming muttered to himself. He was certain that the Zhuowen from the outside world was an impostor, and his expression became even uglier. If it's just an impostor, he actually dares to be so arrogant and ask me to leave in 30 breaths of time. He's got some guts. When I go out, I'll definitely break his legs. With that, Qi Gaoming walked towards the city gate of Dark Rock, Divine City. City Lord. When Qi Gaoming arrived at the city gate, the cultivators guarding the gate bowed respectfully to Qi Gaoming. Qi Gaoming nodded, and his gaze landed on the two figures outside the city gate. These two figures were a man and a woman. The moment Qi Gaoming saw the man, he immediately lost his calm, because this man actually looked exactly the same as Zhuowen. Or rather, it was Zhuowen. However, Qi Gaoming quickly calmed down. Like Zhou Xiaowei, he believed that the Zhuowen in front of him was an impostor. Your name is Zhuowen? Do you know who Zhuowen is? Qi Gaoming asked coldly. Zhuowen and Mei Su stood side by side. Hearing Qi Gaoming's question, Zhuowen's gaze suddenly became extremely strange. Before Zhuowen could answer, Qi Gaoming spoke again. He said coldly, Zhuowen is my master and I am his follower. You pretended to be my master. Do you really think that I, Qi Gaoming, am easy to bully? Zhuowen's gaze became even stranger. He shook his head and said, Qi Gaoming, are you playing dumb in front of me? Since you still recognize me as your master, then get down here and apologize. Qi Gaoming looked up to the sky and laughed. He said sarcastically, You're just a fake. Although you look like my master, I know that you're definitely not my master, because Master has already left the Slaughter Heaven domain. He is not in the Slaughter Heaven domain now. Can you use your brain when you're pretending? How dare you pretend to be my master when you don't even know such things? Zhuowen shook his head. He was really defeated by Qi Gaoming's ability to invert right and wrong. He really didn't want to continue arguing with Qi Gaoming. His patience had been exhausted. He picked up the half-dead Zhou Xiaowei from the macro world and threw him at Qi Gaoming. Qi Gaoming didn't react because the speed at which Zhou Xiaowei was thrown was too fast. His gaze was cold as he threw out a punch. The moment his fist hit Zhou Xiaowei, he heard a shrill scream. He knew that the person who was thrown was actually a person. Moreover, this person's scream was extremely familiar. Zhou Xiaowei's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his mind instantly became much clearer. He stared at Qi Gaoming and only had time to say before he fell heavily to the ground. His breathing was weak, and he couldn't be more dead. Qi Gaoming was stunned. He didn't expect Zhou Xiaowei to be in Zhuowen's hands. No wonder Zhou Xiaowei didn't respond when he sent him a message. Looking at Zhou Xiaowei, who had died in his hands, Qi Gaoming's eyes instantly turned red. He felt that he had been played, and a sense of humiliation rose in his heart. "You're courting death," Qi Gaoming roared. He took a step forward, jumped down the city wall, and attacked Zhuowen. What happened at the city gate had already attracted the attention of many cultivators in Dark Rock, Divine City. Many figures floated in the sky above the Divine City, watching Qi Gaoming teach Zhuowen a lesson. "This is the first time I've seen the city lord so angry. This person really doesn't know what's good for him. He's going to suffer later. Not only will he suffer, I think he'll be beaten to death by the city lord." Many cultivators in Dark Rock Divine City were watching the battle calmly. In their eyes, this was an unfair battle. Everyone had seen Qi Gaoming's strength with their own eyes. Ever since Meiying was defeated by Qi Gaoming, all the cultivators in the massacre Heavenly Domain subconsciously thought that Qi Gaoming was the strongest in the massacre Heavenly Domain. Now that a provocative fellow had come, they all subconsciously thought that this person was courting death. Zhuowen only raised his hand and easily caught Qi Gaoming's fist. Qi Gaoming struggled with all his might, but he found that he couldn't break free at all. He was shocked, and his eyes were filled with fear. He realized that he had underestimated the black-clothed youth in front of him. "Qi Gaoming, when I gave you the divine pill to help you break through, I didn't let you invade other divine cities and fulfill your ambitions. I wanted you to be obedient and wait for me to come back. Now that I'm back, you actually question my identity and try to kill me. You're really good, even better than that Zhou Shiwei." Zhuowen's tone gradually became heavier, and the strength in his hand also increased. Qi Gaoming's right fist immediately cracked. Qi Gaoming let out a blood-curdling scream and immediately cut off his right arm. Then he quickly retreated. He was terrified. Looking at the black-clothed youth in front of him, he revealed a look of disbelief. He understood that the black-clothed youth in front of him was not pretending to be Zhuowen, but Zhuowen himself. However, Qi Gaoming felt that it was inconceivable. How could this Zhuowen return so early? And how did he return? "Can you retreat?" As Qi Gaoming was retreating, Zhuowen's voice also sounded like the call of the god of death. Following that, Qi Gaoming felt a terrifying force that was as vast as a mountain and impossible to resist acting on Qi Gaoming's body. Qi Gaoming let out a muffled groan and directly smashed face down onto the ground. And the place where Qi Gaoming landed just happened to be in front of Zhuowen. Just as Qi Gaoming was about to struggle up, Zhuowen unceremoniously stomped his right foot down. Chapter 30:412. The entire Dark Rock Divine City was terrifyingly quiet. All the cultivators felt as if they had been struck by lightning. They were stunned on the spot as they watched Zhuowen stomp Qi Gaoming to the ground. From the moment Qi Gaoming made his move to being trampled under Zhuowen's foot, it had only been one move. Qi Gaoming had actually been defeated so cleanly. Since when did City Lord Qi become so weak? He had defeated City Lord Meiying before. He can be said to be the strongest person in the massacre Heavenly Region. It's not that City Lord Qi is weak, but this guy called Zhuowen is too strong. City Lord Qi, a mid-stage Tongtian master, was defeated in one move and stomped under his foot. This is definitely not something an ordinary person can do. This person must be a ruthless person who surpasses the mid-stage Tongtian master. You said he's called Zhuowen? I've heard that there was an expert called Zhuowen who killed the city lord of Dark Rock Divine City and subdued Qi Gaoming, Meiying, and other experts. However, he left the massacre Heavenly Region later. Could it be this person? The noise around them grew louder and louder. They began to guess Zhuowen's identity. All of them kept quiet out of fear, and no one dared to help Qi Gaoming. Not to mention Zhuowen's terrifying strength. Just Zhuowen's legend in the massacre Heavenly Region was enough to make them lose the will to fight against him. Moreover, a late-stage Tongtian master like Qi Gaoming had been beaten so badly. How could they have the courage to go against a ruthless person like Zhuowen? Qi Gaoming was very sullen. He shouted for the subordinates of Dark Rock Divine City to attack. But unfortunately, no one listened to him. Everyone was intimidated by Zhuowen. Their feet felt as if they were filled with lead, and they didn't dare to step forward. Zhuowen's right leg hooked, and Qi Gaoming involuntarily floated in the air. Soon after, Zhuowen kicked out. Qi Gaoming's chest was fiercely kicked, and he spat out a mouthful of blood as he involuntarily flew out. Boom! Qi Gaoming slammed heavily into the wall, creating a human-shaped hole in the wall. His whole body was embedded in the wall. Lord Zhuo, please spare my life. I know I was wrong. Please spare my life. Qi Gaoming's entire body trembled as he spat out these words with great difficulty. He was truly terrified. The Zhuowen in front of him was too strong and too terrifying. He realized that Zhuowen's strength was much stronger than before. In any case, he was at the middle stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension, but he could beat him half to death with a casual wave of his hand. Moreover, Qi Gaoming also knew that Zhuowen had shown mercy. With Zhuowen's strength, it would be a piece of cake for him to kill him completely. Since Zhuowen had shown mercy, Qi Gaoming knew that Zhuowen did not intend to kill him immediately. He still had a chance to survive, so he promptly begged for mercy. You don't have the right to beg me for mercy. I'll give you a chance now. Hand over Mei Ying or die. Zhuowen's voice was cold and emotionless. Qi Gaoming nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that Zhuowen had not killed him, so he still had a chance to live. Of course, this was on the premise that he performed well enough. Lord Zhuo, I'll bring you to see Mei Ying. Qi Gaoming struggled out of the hole and fell to the ground in a sorry state, gasping for breath. Zhuowen walked in front of Qi Gaoming and lifted him up, saying, "Now show me the way." Qi Gaoming's eyes were filled with humiliation, but he was helpless. He knew that Zhuowen was too strong for him to contend with, so he could only show Zhuowen the way. Countless cultivators in Dark Rock City stared blankly at the scene in front of them. They saw Zhuowen carrying Qi Gaoming and following him step by step into the depths of the city. No one could have imagined that Qi Gaoming, who was usually high and mighty, was being carried by someone with one hand at this moment, as if he was a dog. This scene was indeed a little strange. Qi Gaoming's heart was filled with humiliation and helplessness. Under Qi Gaoming's lead, Zhuowen easily entered the dungeon of Dark Rock City. The dungeon of Dark Rock City was very spacious. There were basically no prisoners in the cells, so it was gloomy and cold. Mei Ying was locked in a solitary cell in the deepest part of the dungeon. This cell was filled with dirty water. Mei Ying was tied to a rusty cross on the subway. Her shoulder blades were pierced, and the tendons in her arms and legs were cut. Blood flowed continuously from the cross. Her hair was disheveled and her head hung low. Perhaps she heard footsteps, but her head only trembled slightly. She did not even raise her head. Her head was still hung low. "Mother!" Mei Su covered her cherry lips when she saw Mei Ying's miserable state. Her voice was filled with grief and indignation. Mei Ying heard Mei Su's voice and her delicate body trembled. She finally raised her head. It was difficult for her to do so. Her face was covered in blood. However, from the outline of her face that was covered in blood, it was not difficult to see that her face was unparalleled when it was clean. "Su, or why are you here? It's dangerous here. You shouldn't be here. Hurry up and leave," Mei Ying said agitatedly. Although Mei Ying was very agitated, her words were weak. It was obvious that she had suffered a lot in this dungeon. Zhuowen glanced coldly at Qi Gaoming, who had his head lowered, and said, "Good job!" Then he walked forward and smashed the prison door, crushing the cross and the shackles on Mei Ying. Mei Ying screamed and fell. She was so weak that she did not even have the strength to support her body. However, a strong arm wrapped around her waist to prevent her from falling to the ground. Mei Ying forced herself to turn her head and struggled to break free from the arm. However, when she saw Zhuo Wen's face, she could not help but be stunned, forgetting to struggle. "Zhuo Wen, why are you here?" Mei Ying's eyes were filled with doubt. Was she hallucinating because of the torture? Zhuo Wen had left the Massacre Sky territory. How could he be here? "I have returned to the Massacre Sky territory." "Mei Ying, don't say anything. Swallow this elixir first." Zhuo Wen stopped Mei Ying, who was about to speak. He handed her a healing elixir and asked her to swallow it. Mei Ying trusted Zhuo Wen wholeheartedly. He swallowed the healing elixir without hesitation. A warm current flowed through Mei Ying's body. The originally weak Mei Ying was suddenly filled with energy, and she looked much better. Mei Ying, who had recovered some of her strength. Only then did she realize that Zhuo Wen's arm was still around her slender waist. Her beautiful face could not help but blush slightly as she moved away from Zhuo Wen without a trace. Zhuo Wen noticed Mei Ying's actions and laughed dryly. He changed the topic and said, "Mei Ying, I have brought the culprit here. You can deal with Qi Gaoming." Zhuo Wen said to Mei Ying as he pointed at Qi Gaoming, who was lying on the ground behind him. At that moment, Mei Su threw herself into Mei Ying's arms. Her face was covered in tears. She sobbed and said, "Mother, I'm sorry that we were late. You have suffered so much." Mei Ying patted Mei Su's back and sighed, We have made you worry. Don't cry. Mother is fine now." Chapter 34:13. Asking for someone to lead the way at this moment. Qi Gaoming was trapped by Zhuo Wen's energy and was lying on the ground. He couldn't break free, let alone escape. City Lord Mei Ying, this is all a misunderstanding. It was Zhou Xiuwei's idea. It has nothing to do with me. Zhou Xiuwei has already been executed by me. City Lord Mei Ying, please be magnanimous and show me mercy. Qi Gaoming was terrified and his heart was about to jump out of his throat. He quickly begged for mercy without any shame. Mei Ying sneered in her heart and said indifferently, "No matter who came up with the idea, I only know that you are the one who has been torturing me all this time. I will only seek revenge from you." With that, Mei Ying's jade-like hand formed a sword and pointed at Qi Gaoming's forehead. Qi Gaoming screamed and his eyes glazed over. His divine soul was completely destroyed, and he couldn't be more dead. After killing Qi Gaoming, Mei Ying turned around and knelt on one knee. She cupped her fists at Zhuo Wen and said, "Immortal Master Zhuo Wen, thank you very much. If it wasn't for you, I, Mei Ying, would have fallen here." Zhuo Wen helped Mei Ying up and said with a smile, "City Lord Mei Ying, you and I are friends. When a friend is in trouble, I, Zhuo Wen, will not sit idly by." Then, Mei Su told Mei Ying about her encounter with Zhuo Wen. This made Mei Ying furious. She originally thought that Qi Gaoming had only subdued Dark Rock Divine City. She didn't expect him to not let Hongxian Divine City go. If it wasn't for Zhuo Wen, Hongxian Divine City and Mei Su would have fallen. Thinking of this, Mei Ying felt a lingering fear, and her gratitude towards Zhuo Wen grew even stronger. After that, Mei Ying displayed her strength as a strong woman. She reorganized the Dark Rock Divine City as fast as she could. Very soon, the originally chaotic Dark Rock Divine City was restored to order and peace under Mei Ying's control. After Dark Rock Divine City was completely reorganized, Mei Ying sent out an army to attack Quiet Sun Divine City. With Zhuo Wen's help, the Quiet Sun Divine City was like a chicken or a dog, easily breached. After completely subduing the Quiet Sun Divine City, Mei Ying sent trusted subordinates to guard the Quiet Sun Divine City and Dark Rock Divine City. Then he followed Zhuo Wen back to Hongxian Divine City with Mei Su. In the main hall of Hongxian Divine City, Mei Ying, Mei Su, and Ying Jia were present. The three of them looked at Zhuo Wen in shock. Among them, Mei Su asked in disbelief, "Big Brother Zhuo, can you really help us leave the massacre heavens?" Everyone knew that the only way to leave the massacre heavenly domain was to enter the forbidden Death Mountain. Moreover, they also knew that the forbidden Death Mountain range was very dangerous. Even if Mei Ying's cultivation base had broken through to the middle stage of the heaven-reaching master, he still wouldn't dare to enter the forbidden Death Mountain range alone. She had originally planned to give it a try when she broke through to the late stage of the heavenly ascension realm, but now she really didn't dare to do so. But now Zhuowen said that he could bring them out of the massacre heavens. This really shocked them. However, when they thought about how Zhuowen had not only left the massacre heavens, but also returned from the outside world, they knew that Zhuowen wasn't lying. Moreover, with Zhuowen's strength, there was no need for him to lie. If you trust me, I can bring you out of the massacre heavenly domain. However, you must be trustworthy, and there can't be too many of you. Go back and make arrangements. Remember, there can't be more than 10 people. If there are too many people, I won't be able to bring them. Zhuowen reminded them. The reason why Zhuowen said this was not because he didn't have the ability to bring more people into the Forbidden Death Mountain, but because he wasn't optimistic about the teleportation array that he had set up temporarily. The teleportation array couldn't transport too many people. After receiving Zhuowen's reminder, Mei Ying, Ying Jia, and the rest went back to make arrangements. 3 days later, at the city gate of Hongxian Divine City, Mei Ying, Mei Su, and Ying Jia had gathered. Besides them, there were 5 people that Zhuowen didn't recognize. The 5 of them were quite young. Judging from their auras, they shouldn't be from the human tribe, but from the foreign tribes of the primitive heavens domain. Celestial Master Zhua, everything is ready. Are we going to enter the Forbidden Death Mountain? Mei Ying asked for Zhuowen's opinion. The 5 people behind Mei Ying were all excited. They looked at Zhuowen's back and whispered to each other. Although the 5 of them didn't speak loudly, Zhuowen's 5 senses were too strong, and he heard their conversation. He's Celestial Master Zhua. He's so young, and he's quite handsome. He's actually able to stir up the entire massacre heavenly domain. He's a real demonic figure. I'm willing to be his cultivation partner. A beautiful female foreign tribe member said in a love-struck manner. Don't even think about it. Celestial Master, Zhua won't fall for a common woman like you. If you want to be his cultivation partner, you should at least be as pretty as Miss Mei Su. You're still far from that. Another male foreign tribe member snorted. Zhuowen was speechless. He didn't continue to listen and blocked his divine perception. Just follow me. Once we reach the Forbidden Death Mountain, someone will come to pick us up. Zhuowen nodded and mounted the tall dragon horse. When the rest of the people saw Zhuowen's actions, they all mounted their own dragon horses. Let's go. Zhuowen spoke. Immediately, the group shot out like an arrow that had left a bow, leaving behind a trail of dust. The dragon horses were very fast. In just a day, they were already close to the Forbidden Death Mountain. Zhuowen brought everyone to the foot of a mountain in the Forbidden Death Mountain range and stopped. This was the exit that Zhuowen had used to leave the Forbidden Death Mountain under Shi, whose instructions. Naturally, they could enter the Forbidden Death Mountain from here. Zhuowen took out his communication jade charm and sent a message to Shi Hu. If he didn't come, he would have to bear the consequences. When Shi Hu received Zhuowen's message, he cursed in his heart. However, there was nothing he could do. He was really afraid of this human. If he didn't go out to pick them up, this human would attack his nest and he would be finished. Thinking of this, Shi Hu sighed helplessly and left his nest. He went to the place that Zhuowen had instructed him to pick up Zhuowen. At the foot of the mountain, Mei Ying was curious about Zhuowen, who was waiting for them. He asked curiously, Celestial Master Zhua, aren't we going up directly? Why are we waiting here? The Forbidden Death Mountain's terrain is very complicated. Even I would get lost easily. That's why I invited a strange beast from the Forbidden Death Mountain to guide us. Zhuowen said flatly. What? A strange beast from the Forbidden Death Mountain? I heard that the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain are extremely terrifying. It is said that there are even some strange beasts at the level of the Master of Heaven. Celestial Master Joie, you can actually make the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain listen to you? Mei Ying's beautiful eyes narrowed as he found it unbelievable. The rest of the people were also surprised. They had all heard of the legend of the Forbidden Death Mountain and knew that the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain were the most difficult to deal with. Chapter 34:14. Giving away although everyone was in disbelief. No one dared to question him. Zhuowen was too powerful and ruthless. They did not dare to question such an expert. Zhuowen saw the doubt in everyone's eyes, but he did not point it out. Instead, he waited silently. He believed that Shi, who would not ignore his message. After all, the strength that he had displayed before was too strong. Shi, who would not offend him because of this. Sure enough, not long after, the thick black fog at the foot of the mountain dissipated and a figure landed at the foot of the mountain. Mei Ying and the others were waiting in boredom. When the black fog dissipated, they immediately became vigilant. They looked solemnly at the figure that came out of the Forbidden Death Mountain range. The figure had a tiger's head and a human's body. Its aura was vast and boundless like the ocean. Mei Ying's beautiful eyes narrowed the moment she saw the tiger-headed man. She said in a low voice, "It's an exotic beast at the middle stage of the sky-reaching Master Realm. It's very powerful." Mei Su, Yingjia, and the 5 juniors became nervous when they heard Mei Ying's words. They had lived in the Massacre Heavenly Domain for a long time and had heard a lot about the Forbidden Death Mountain Range. They knew that the exotic beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain Range were much stronger than those of the same rank. Cultivators of the same rank would usually be defeated if they fought against the exotic beasts. Although the tiger-headed exotic beast had the same cultivation level as Mei Ying, everyone knew that Mei Ying would not be a match for the exotic beast. However, Mei Ying and the others were less nervous when they saw Zhuowen. They thought of Zhuowen's strength and knew that the tiger-headed exotic beast might not be a match for Zhuowen. They had originally thought that there would be a great battle. Who would have thought that the tiger-faced, human-bodied beast with a grand aura would walk in front of Zhuowen, kneel on one knee, and say respectfully, "Greetings, Lord!" Mei Ying, Mei Su, and the others couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock. This strange beast with a tiger's face and a human's body was at least at the mid-stage of the Heaven Ascension realm. Yet it was actually kneeling in front of Zhuowen to express its submission. Celestial Master Joie, don't tell me that the person you mentioned earlier is this strange beast. Mei Ying regained his senses and asked, "Who are you calling an exotic beast? Human, you better watch your words. Otherwise, don't blame me for tearing your mouth apart." Shi, who looked at Mei Ying with hostility. Don't look at how respectful and obedient Shi, who was towards Zhuowen. That was because Zhuowen's strength was too strong, suppressing him to the point that he did not dare to act recklessly. However, Mei Ying was not Zhuowen, and he was not that powerful. With Shi, whose personality, he would not be nice to Mei Ying and the others. They are all my friends. Watch your words. Zhuowen said faintly. Shi, who trembled when he heard that. He could hear a trace of killing intent in Zhuowen's words. Shi, who quickly forced a smile and said, "Sir, you worry too much. I was just joking with them just now." Zhuowen nodded and said without batting an eyelid, "I need to bring my friend into the Forbidden Mountain Range, which is the place all of you found me at that time. Bring me there now, and this divine pill is yours." Zhuowen took out a spirit-cleansing divine pill and waved it in front of Shi Hu. Then he kept it in the macro world. Shi Hu's eyes widened the moment he saw the spirit-cleansing divine pill. He was no stranger to the spirit-cleansing divine pill. Not only could it increase the probability of an early-stage Heaven Ascension Realm Master breaking through to the mid-stage, but it also had unimaginable benefits for the mid-stage Heaven Ascension Realm Master. A divine pill of this level was too precious. It could be said that it was hard to find even one. Now, the human cultivator in front of him casually took it out. This made Sher, who viewed Zhuowen even more highly. Of course, he was also even more apprehensive of Zhuowen in his heart. He was very clear that the resources on this person were so abundant, his strength was so formidable. He definitely had an extremely robust background behind him. When Sher, who saw Zhuowen, put away the spirit-cleansing divine pill, his gaze was slightly disappointed. But he came back to his senses very quickly and said with a face full of eagerness, "Your Excellency, this lowly one will definitely do it well for you. You can rest assured." Zhuowen nodded and said, "Then lead the way in front." Sher, who had a look of eagerness as he led Zhuowen's party into the stone steps that went up at the foot of the mountain. These stone steps presented a verdant color, sparkling and translucent, like jade, emitting a light that was hard to look at. The moment Zhuowen stepped onto the stone steps, he had already entered the range of the forbidden Death Mountain. Dense and powerful sword qi surged toward Zhuowen, drilling into his acupoints in an attempt to pierce through Zhuowen. Zhuowen was not surprised. This was not the first time he had stepped onto these stone steps. Coupled with his strong physical body, these sword qi really could not cause any harm to him. However, Zhuowen frowned slightly. The moment he saw Mei Ying and the others step onto the stone steps, they all exclaimed in surprise. Mei Ying and Ying Jie were still fine. Their cultivation was the strongest among them, so naturally they could withstand the sword qi around them. On the other hand, Mei Su and the other 5 juniors had the lowest cultivation. The moment they encountered the sword qi, they were immediately thrown into disarray and suffered serious injuries. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and used the profound creation, mysterious light. A blazing white light spread out with Zhuowen as the center. Instantly, with Zhuowen as the center, the white light formed a solid boundary that enveloped Mei Su and the others within a 10-meter radius. As soon as the boundary appeared, the terrifying sword qi around them was immediately blocked outside. "Thank you, Brother Zhuo." Mei Su and the others steadied themselves. Naturally, they also noticed the boundary that suddenly appeared around them. They quickly cupped their hands and thanked Zhuowen. Sher, who was leading the way in front, also stopped. He looked at the boundary around them and looked at Zhuowen with even more respect. He could feel that the boundary that Zhuowen had just cast was very powerful. He even doubted if he could break it if he attacked with all his might. Then, the group continued on their way. Soon, Sher, who led the group to the area where Zhuowen had just teleported into the forbidden Death Mountain range. As soon as Zhuowen entered the area, he waved his right hand and summoned several beast bone array discs. He began to deduce the original teleportation trajectory. This time, he quickly found the original teleportation trajectory. After all, he had just entered the Massacre Heavenly Domain not long ago, so it was naturally easy to find the teleportation trajectory. After finding the teleportation trajectory, Zhuowen began to set up the teleportation array. About an hour later, Zhuowen finished setting up the teleportation array. After he threw a few thousand Heavenly Law origin crystals into the teleportation array, it immediately emitted a blazing white light. Within the teleportation array, there was even a powerful spatial fluctuation. Zhuowen looked at Mei Ying and the others and said, "City Lord Mei Ying, Miss Mei Su, the teleportation array is ready. You can all enter now." Chapter 34:15. Mysterious Image Lake, Big Brother Zhuo. Why aren't you entering the teleportation array? After entering the teleportation array, Mei Su saw that Zhuowen hadn't moved and hurriedly asked. As soon as Mei Su said that Mei Ying, Ying Jie, and the rest came to their senses and looked at Zhuowen in confusion, Zhuowen cupped his hands and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, I'm afraid I can't follow you to the primitive heavenly realm." "Why, Big Brother Zhuo, you're also from the primitive heavenly realm. Why don't you follow us?" Mei Su asked in confusion. "Immortal Master Zhuo, do you want to stay in the slaughter heavenly realm? This place isn't suitable for you." If you follow us to the primitive heavenly realm, I'll use the nine-tailed fox clan's power to repay your kindness." Maying said. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "The primitive heavenly realm isn't my hometown. My real identity isn't from the Devouring Clan. The Devouring Clan is just a clone of mine. My real body is a human, so I can't follow you." Zhuowen cupped his hands and said, "Everyone, if there's a chance in the future, we'll meet again. Let's part ways here." Zhuowen threw out a formation flag, and the teleportation array emitted a blazing white light that engulfed everyone. Zhuowen watched as the white light gradually disappeared. Then he turned around and looked at Shi Hu, who was still following behind him. He tossed a grand peace spirit divine pill to Shi Hu. "Thank you, my lord." Shi Hu's eyes widened when he received the spirit cleansing divine pill. He thanked Zhuowen again and was extremely excited. "Shi Hu, I heard that the Forbidden Mountain Range is the only way out of the Slaughter Heavenly Realm. However, I've tried this place before, and I only know that it leads to the primitive heavenly realm. Is there no other way out?" Zhuowen asked indifferently. Shi Hu carefully put away the spirit cleansing divine pill and looked at Zhuowen. After knowing that Zhuowen was a human, he already knew why Zhuowen asked that question. He grinned and said, "Sir, you may not know this, but the Forbidden Death Mountain is not the only way to leave the Slaughter Heavenly Realm. Your guess is right. The Forbidden Death Mountain is an exit that leads to the great desolate Heaven Realm. I know you are a human, and the place you want to return to should be the Xian Mi Heavenly Domain. And the other place I want to tell you is the entrance to the mysterious passageway that leads to the Xian Mi Heavenly Domain." Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He knew that there was more than one exit in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. He had learned about the Slaughter Heavenly Domain from the Black King. He knew that this Heavenly Domain was a very mysterious and strange Heavenly Domain between the Great Desolate Heavenly Domain and the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. Since there was an exit to the Great Desolate Heavenly Domain, there must be an exit to the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. When Zhuowen saw the hesitation on Shi Hu's face, he knew that this fellow wanted some benefits. Zhuowen took out a grand peace spirit divine pill again and said indifferently, "Tell me, and this divine pill is yours." When Shi Hu saw that Zhuowen actually took out another grand peace spirit divine pill, his eyes immediately revealed a look of surprise. At the same time, he was shocked by Zhuowen's wealth to be able to take out so many divine pills so casually. In the opposite direction of the Forbidden Death Mountain, it can be considered another border of the Massacre Heavenly Domain. There's a vast and boundless lake. We call it the Mystic Image Lake. The reason why this lake has such a name is entirely because cultivators who enter the Mystic Image Lake will encounter a mirror image human figure that is exactly the same as him. This is the strange part of the Mystic Image Lake. It can completely replicate all the abilities and divine artifacts of the cultivators who enter the Mystic Image Lake. And the replicated mirror image human figure's strength is even stronger than the original. In the Massacre Heavenly Domain, the gathering place of the quiet Sun Divine City is basically filled with human cultivators. Many of them choose to barge into the Mystic Image Lake in order to leave this place, hoping to return to the Xian Mi Heavenly Domain. However, these human cultivators who barged into the Mystic Image Lake were all annihilated and died in the Mystic Image Lake. That place is even more terrifying than the Forbidden Death Mountain. No matter how strong you are, the Mystic Image Lake will create a mirror image human figure that is even stronger than you. The final result of barging in is death. At this point, Shi Hu looked at Zhuowen and advised Zhuowen not to rashly attempt to enter the Mystic Image Lake. He had also received a lot of benefits from Zhuowen and had a good impression of Zhuowen. Although he knew that Zhuowen was very strong, wanting to pass through the Mystic Image Lake was not something that could be done with just strength. That place was an unsolvable place. Zhuowen nodded. Although Shi Hu advised that that place was not a good place, Zhuowen was unmoved. He had to return to the Xian Mi Heavenly Domain. Not only did he have to find Mu Chinchua's whereabouts, but his Ryuka family was still in the Xian, Mi heavenly domain. All these years he had been running around in the outside world and rarely returned to Ryuka. He did not even know how his Ryuka family members were doing. This time in the primitive heavenly domain, Zhuin's strength had increased greatly. Furthermore, the great world was extremely hidden. He decided that after returning to the Xianmi heavenly domain, he would bring the Ryuka family to live in the great world. With the resources and foundation in the great world, he would definitely be able to build the Ryuka family into an extremely powerful force. After all, his foundation had far surpassed all the other powerful forces. Even the sorcerer tribe, the number one tribe in the primitive heavenly domain, could not compare to Zhuin's current foundation. In addition, he was a powerful array master and alchemist. As long as he was still around, the Ryuka family would only become more prosperous. In the end, Zhuin obtained the route to the mysterious image lake from Shi and left the forbidden Death Mountain Range. Shi, who looked at Zhuin's departing figure and shook his head, he sighed softly and said, "This lord is really stubborn. The mysterious image lake is simply unsolvable, but he still wants to go. I really don't know what he is thinking." However, when he thought about how he had obtained 2 grand harmony spirit elixirs for no reason, his expression immediately became much more cheerful. This time he had gotten a huge bargain. If he completely refined the grand harmony spirit elixir, his cultivation would improve greatly again. Zhuin's speed was very fast. He rode the space-time roulette and advanced rapidly. In just 2 days he had crossed the entire massacre heavenly domain and arrived at the other border of the massacre heavenly domain that Shi had mentioned. The massacre heavenly domain was much smaller than the primitive heavenly domain and the Xianmi heavenly domain. Therefore, he did not need to spend much time to cross the entire massacre heavenly domain. Zhuin stopped the space-time roulette. At the same time, he also saw at the end ahead an incomparably huge lake with clear and crystalline waves appeared before his eyes. The shape of this lake was oval-shaped. The surface of the lake flickered with a cold light, sparkling and shining. It was very extraordinary. Zhuin stopped at the shore of the lake. Looking at the clear and crystalline lake water under his feet, his brows furrowed. This lake was no different from an ordinary lake. He did not even feel the fluctuations of an array formation in the surroundings. If not for Shihu's reminder, he would have suspected whether this lake was the mysterious image lake or not. But very soon, Zhuin revealed a look of surprise. He looked at the figure in the lake that reflected his reflection. That figure was also looking at him. Zhuin discovered that the pair of eyes of the figure in the lake was actually a faint blue. It was completely different from his black pupils. Chapter 34:16. Mirror Image Shadow Splash. The sharp sound of water suddenly rang out, and the figure reflected in the water was grinning maliciously at Zhuin. And without any warning, he attacked swiftly and violently. An arm quickly reached out of the water and grabbed Zhuin's feet, intending to pull Zhuin into the lake. Zhuin's reaction was very fast. The moment the figure attacked, he had already retreated. What surprised Zhuin was that the moment he retreated, he couldn't see his own figure. The arm that reached out of the water also collapsed. The surface of the lake was still tranquil. The waves were clear and crystalline, flickering with a lustrous light. Zhuin frowned slightly. He stopped in his tracks and didn't look too good. The next few times, Zhuin tried to walk to the shore of the lake. Every time his figure would be reflected in the lake, and every time the figure in the lake would reveal a sinister smile and decisively attack Zhuin. One time, Zhuin's reaction was slower and his right foot was immediately grabbed by the figure in the lake. The figure was very strong and Zhuin was almost dragged into the water. Fortunately, Zhuin used the power of time and space and time to escape the range of the lake. Zhuin stood quite far away from the shore of the lake and looked pensive. After a few attempts, Zhuin finally figured out the pattern of the mystic image lake. As long as a person's figure was reflected on the surface of the water, the mysterious image lake would produce a mirror image of a person. As for this mirrored figure, its strength was even more extraordinary. It was even stronger than the original. He could guess a thing or two from the fact that he was almost dragged into the lake by the figure in the water. According to Sure Who, if he wanted to pass through the mystic image lake, he had to defeat the mirror image produced by the mystic image lake. His clone cultivated the Pengu's sacred body and was the strongest. However, in the mystic image lake, the mirror image produced would probably be stronger than his clone. Zhuowen didn't plan to let his clone fight. At the thought of this, he summoned his true body of the human race from the great world. The white robes of the true body of the human race fluttered along with the wind. His face carried a scholarly smile. Furthermore, his cultivation base had also made significant progress. Ever since he had broken through to the heavenly master realm, coupled with the abundant resources of the outside world, his cultivation base had reached the peak of the early heavenly master realm. He wasn't far from the middle stage of the master of heaven realm. Although the cultivation of his true body might not be particularly high, his human true body had successfully attained the Tao with a body without a Tao root. It could be said that this was unprecedented. Correspondingly, the main body's battle prowess was absolutely astonishing, far surpassing those of the same level. It could fight against a mid-stage Heaven's Ascension Master, and there was even a high chance that it could defeat a mid-stage Heaven's Ascension Master. For the battle at the Mystic Image Lake this time, it was most appropriate to send his true body to try it out. Once the main body was no match for the main body, the clone could forcefully intervene and swiftly rescue the main body. This also meant that there was an additional layer of protection. The main body of the human race nodded to the clone, then walked step by step toward the Mystic Image Lake. The instant he reached the shore, he suddenly stomped his right foot and instantly leaped into the air, landing in the center of the lake. The clone sat cross-legged on the shore and looked at the main body floating in the air above the lake. Then he looked at the surface of the water at the center of the lake. The main body's figure appeared there. The figure's eyes were still dark blue, and there was a strange smile on his face. Splash! Suddenly, the figure broke out of the water and let out a beast-like roar. He quickly swept toward the main body in the air above the center of the lake. A terrifying force swept out, and countless splashes of water splashed in all directions, forming pillars of water one after another in the air. These pillars of water shot straight into the sky like water dragons. Countless splashes of water scattered in all directions, forming a hazy mist above the water. The main body snorted coldly, and a pair of huge illusory eyes appeared behind him. It was the torch dragon's eye that he had used. The torch dragon's eye was very mysterious, and its pupils emitted a faint light as if it could see through everything and illusions. The main body took a strange step in midair, and then his eyes flickered. He stomped his right foot, and a terrifying force shook the ground as he stomped toward one of the water pillars below. Bang! 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 Zhuowen's leg strength was terrifying, and it carried the terrifying power of the heavenly Tao. The water pillar directly exploded, splashing out dazzling water. Bang! At the same time, a figure suddenly rushed out from the exploding water pillar and punched the back of the main body. The fist force was like a rainbow, and it was terrifying as if it could split the sky and earth. The main body was already prepared. He turned around and suddenly flicked his right leg. Endless astral winds swept out with his right leg, and it was very terrifying. Bang! The fist and leg collided, and endless ripples exploded. The main body and the figure suddenly separated, and the two of them let out a muffled groan at the same time. Zhuowen stabilized his body and began to carefully size up the mirror figure opposite him. The figure was almost the same height as him. The only thing he didn't understand was that the figure's entire body was pitch black, and his facial features couldn't be seen. It was as if the figure in front of him was a shadow. Whoosh! The figure stomped his foot and launched another attack. The main body didn't show any weakness and also flew out. Suddenly, the two of them fought again, and the terrifying ripples of the battle spread out in all directions like mist. The battle between the two of them was very terrifying. The space above the lake was crisscrossed and collapsed, and pillars of water flew out from the lake one after another, straight into the sky like water dragons. It was very spectacular. The doppelganger sitting cross-legged on the shore looked more and more serious. He found that the main body was gradually suppressed by the figure. The attack methods of the two were almost identical, and there was no difference, but the figure's strength was much stronger than the main body. This can't go on. The main body will lose without a doubt. I have to pull the main body back first. The doppelganger muttered to himself and began to communicate with the main body, telling him to go to the shore first. The doppelganger quickly took action and pulled him out of the range of the mysterious image lake. However, the doppelganger didn't get a response from the main body. His expression gradually became strange because he found that in the process of the main body's continuous battle with the mirror figure, the main body's eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. Seeing the look of enlightenment in the main body's eyes, the doppelganger, who originally wanted to persuade the main body to come back, stopped. He knew the main body's situation. The main body's cultivation was already at the peak of the early stage of the Heaven Ascension Master, and it was only half a step away from the middle stage. Originally, with the powerful foundation of the Great World, it was not impossible to forcefully use resources to promote the main body in a short period of time. But there would be corresponding side effects, so the main body naturally didn't choose this method. The main body was looking for some kind of opportunity, an opportunity to comprehend. He was very clear that as long as he could find this opportunity, then a breakthrough would be a matter of course. Chapter 34:17. Meeting the Black King again. Although the original body was constantly being suppressed by the mirror image, he was not defeated. Instead, the original body's eyes were becoming more and more enlightened. Following that, the original body's aura changed. The original body's aura was also becoming stronger, as if it would break through at any time. Bang! The original body was pushed back again. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his face was slightly pale. However, the original body's lips were curled up. He was smiling, and the curvature of his lips was getting wider and wider. His eyes became extremely clear, and they were filled with a strong fighting spirit. Once again, he fought with the mirror image. This time, the original body was no longer at a disadvantage. Instead, the more he fought, the braver he became. The aura on his body also became more and more violent and powerful. Boom! The original body suddenly threw out a punch. Instantly, terrifying lightning exploded, and an ear-piercing explosion sounded. As for the power of this punch, it was fully unleashed. It had actually reached an unprecedentedly terrifying level. The mirror image was like a machine that did not know fear. He also threw out a punch, intending to meet the original body head-on. With a crisp cracking sound, the mirror image's right fist was shattered. Blood splattered everywhere, and he was in a miserable state. He kept retreating. The original body's aura became more and more vast. The energy on his body kept rising, forming a terrifying and complicated energy storm above his head. At the same time, the original body's power also rose to a terrifying level. The original body took a step forward and caught up with the mirror image. He threw out a punch, and it landed heavily on the mirror image's chest. The mirror image's chest was directly smashed. Blood burst out, and his sternum caved in. He looked extremely miserable. The original body did not let the mirror image go so easily. He threw out punch after punch, and the power of each punch was extremely terrifying. It could shatter any physical body, and it was so terrifying that it could destroy the heavens and earth. Uft! The original body finally threw out a punch, and it landed on the mirror image's back. Then, the mirror image screamed and exploded into nothingness. At this moment, the original body's aura had reached its peak. His body emitted crackling sounds, as if many beings were colliding with each other. Finally, his aura was elevated to a higher level, and the energy in his body was constantly being reorganized and transformed. He was in high spirits. The clone that was seated on the shore slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the main body that was still floating in the air above the mysterious image lake and muttered to himself, "I never imagined that the main body would actually make a breakthrough in the middle of the battle. The battle at the mysterious image lake this time has truly benefited the main body quite a bit." But soon the Avatar's gaze was attracted to the center of the mysterious image lake. At the center of the profound image lake, a violently rotating vortex actually appeared. This whirlpool was very big, and it was pitch black inside. It was incomparably deep, and it was impossible to see what was in the depths. However, his main body, which was hovering above the lake, saw the depths of the vortex through the torch dragon's eye. In the depths, he saw the exit to the massacre heavenly domain. He knew that if he won the battle of the mystic image lake this time, he would also win the right to leave the slaughter sky domain. Speaking of which, he should be the first cultivator to pass through the profound image lake in the slaughter heavenly domain. After all, Sherhu had said that no human cultivator had successfully passed the test of the mystic image lake. The clone on the shore stood up and took a step forward to the main body side. He looked down at the black vortex below and said to the main body, "Main body, it's been hard on you this time. Enter the great world first. Leave the rest to me." The main body nodded. He had just broken through and urgently needed to consolidate his newly advanced realm. After the main body entered the great world, the clone hesitated for a moment before rushing into the vortex below. The moment he entered the vortex, Zhuan's vision fell into darkness. However, by using his divine thought, he was able to see the inside of the whirlpool clearly. What made Zhuan feel strange was that the vortex stirred up the lake so violently, but the inside of the vortex was very quiet. Moreover, through his divine thought, Zhuan discovered that there was actually a staircase inside the vortex. This staircase was forged from bluestone. The surface was smooth and exquisite like jade. Zhuan continued to walk down the staircase. As he went down, Zhuan saw many corpses. They must be the corpses of cultivators who had failed the test and died in the profound image lake. After about half a day, Zhuan walked out of the staircase and came to a dark secret room. In front of the secret room, there was a bronze tree. Zhuan was very familiar with this bronze tree. When he had entered the mysterious passage, he had walked along the light and darkness path. At the end of the light and darkness path was a bronze tree. At that time, he had relied on the bronze tree's teleportation power to finally teleport him into the slaughter heavenly domain. This bronze tree was exactly the same as the one Zhuan had seen last time. In the middle of the tree was a palm-sized blood pattern. The blood pattern was very complicated and gave off the smell of blood. Under the blood pattern, there were 3 grooves. Zhuan knew that these grooves were for heavenly Tao origin crystals. Zhuan straightforwardly took out 3 supreme-grade heavenly Tao origin crystals and placed them in the grooves. Suddenly, the blood pattern on the bronze tree spun rapidly and emitted an intense bloody light. The bloody light spread and formed a bloody vortex that sucked Zhuan in. When Zhuan opened his eyes, he was standing under another bronze tree, and in front of him was a very familiar path of light and darkness. Below the light and darkness path was a winding river of light and darkness. Looking at the river of light and darkness below, Zhuan was so angry that his teeth itched. When he had first entered the slaughter heavenly domain, he had questioned the Phoenix People Sanctus. Later, he had found out that the river of light and darkness led directly to the prehistoric heavenly domain, and this light and darkness path led to the Xian Mi heavenly domain. Back then, the Black King had deliberately misled him. If he had directly entered the river of light and darkness, he would not have had to go through so much trouble to enter the slaughter heavenly domain and then enter the prehistoric heavenly domain through the forbidden Death Mountain Range. Who knew how much effort and time had been spent. Sigh. I hope that the Black King is more reliable this time. Zhuowen shook his head and sighed. He stepped onto the light and darkness path and rushed towards the source of the light and darkness path. When Zhuowen arrived at the source of the light and darkness path, he saw a huge black lion that was as big as a mountain. Black King! When Zhuowen saw the black lion, his expression did not look too good. It was even unfriendly. The black lion also saw Zhuowen. It smiled cheekily and said, "Oh, it's Zhuowen! What a coincidence to meet you here. You're really lucky to be able to come out after entering the slaughter, heavenly domain again. What a surprise, and also made me lose a little miserably." When the black lion said this, its face was full of resentment. Zhuowen felt a chill run down his spine. Lose? Who did you bet with? Zhuowen caught the loophole in the Black King's words and asked. The Black King patted his head and said, "It's just a bet with a friend of mine. I bet that you would die in the slaughter heavenly domain and would not last for 49 days. My friend bet that you would come out alive. I think you know the final result." Zhuowen's eyes emitted a green light as he looked at the Black King unkindly. This guy actually used him as a wager. Zhuowen was very unhappy. However, although he was unhappy, the Black King was very powerful. The aura on his body made even Zhuowen tremble with fear. Chapter 34:18. The death of Tan, Xinghua the Black King, was embarrassed. He looked at Zhuowen's unfriendly gaze and laughed dryly. I wasn't the one who suggested this bet. It was my friend who pestered me to make the bet. What can I do? Zhuowen looked at the Black King suspiciously and asked, "Who is your friend?" Zhuowen Kai would not listen to Black King's nonsense. He knew very well that Black King loved to bet. This bet must have been proposed by this fellow first. However, this fellow had lost and pushed all the blame to his scapegoat friend. The Black King shrugged and said, "I won't tell that old guy. He asked me to keep it a secret. I won't tell you." Zhuowen didn't care. He could guess that the so-called friend who bet with the Black King should be the three pure ones. Zhuowen said calmly, "Now don't block the way. I need to leave this place. Send me back to the Xian-Mi heavenly territory. Do you think I want to wait for you? I'm here to send you a message. The three pure ones want you to go to the heaven-accessing place as soon as possible. He wants me to send you to the starry sky battlefield. You've caused a lot of trouble in the untainted heavenly territory. Fortunately, most people think you died together with a weird green-haired mummy. You're safe now. However, if you go back to the Xianmi heavenly territory and appear in front of everyone, your former enemies will easily pass the news of you to the Wu-Lu and other forces in the heaven-accessing place." The Black King's eyes became serious. He warned Zhuowen to be careful when he went back to the Xianmi heavenly territory. Many practitioners in the Xianmi heavenly territory knew that Zhuowen had used the alias of Longwen. If he appeared in the Xianmi heavenly territory as Zhuowen, it would be easy to arouse suspicion. Then someone would definitely leak the secret. Hearing this, Zhuowen fell silent. He felt a chill in his heart. He really didn't think of this. Now that the Black King reminded him, he broke out in a cold sweat. Seeing Zhuowen's frightened expression, the Black King looked a little proud and said, "It seems that you didn't think of this. Fortunately, I told you in advance. How are you going to thank me?" Zhuowen furrowed his brows. He did not care about the Black King's irritating expression. Instead, he began to think about how he would continue to disguise himself after returning to the Xian-Mi heaven domain. Furthermore, he could no longer use the names Long, Wen, and Zhuowen. "Black King, thank you so much. Teleport me to the Xian-Mi heavenly domain," Zhuowen said solemnly. "Brat, are you even listening to me? Don't you want to go to the heaven-accessing place to meet the old guys, three pure ones? You should know that you destroyed the Sorcerer God City and killed many experts of the Sorcerer tribe. You even killed the Sorcerer tribe's Saint Master. Once the Wu-Lu knows that you are fine, Most of the forces in the primitive heavenly realm in the heaven accessing place will put you on the wanted list. At that time, you will be really miserable. It will be difficult for the 3 pure ones to protect you, and the rest of the ancestral sorcerers' corpses are basically in the heaven accessing place. It's useless for you to wander around the Xianmi heavenly domain and the untainted heavenly domain now. The Black King stared at him. He was still trying to persuade Zhuowen, hoping that Zhuowen would change his mind. I still have some things to do in the Xianmi heavenly domain. After I finish these things, I will naturally go to the heaven accessing place, Zhuowen said solemnly. Seeing that Zhuowen was so determined, the Black King did not try to persuade him again. He said, "Since you have made up your mind, I will not force you. Anyway, I have already delivered your message. Next, I will teleport you out first. It's still the starry sky battlefield. You are free to go wherever you want." As he spoke, the Black King waved his claw. A stream of black energy gushed out and wrapped Zhuowen in an instant. "Hey, wait. Teleport me to the host region of the Xianmi heavenly domain. Don't be in such a hurry," Zhuowen said hurriedly. Unfortunately, the Black King was faster. The black energy wrapped Zhuowen and took him away in an instant. Ah, did that brat say something just now? Did he want me to teleport him to some host region? After the teleportation, the Black King patted his huge head with his claw. But soon he laughed and said to himself, "It must be my illusion. How could I be wrong? Ha ha." The empty and lonely starry sky was cold and empty. Countless meteorites and broken stones were floating around. A beam of light landed on a medium-sized meteorite. When the light faded, a slender young man in black appeared. Zhuowen stood on the meteorite and looked around. After confirming that this was indeed a starry sky in the starry sky battlefield, his face darkened. He knew that the Black King was unreliable, but he did not expect him to be so unreliable. This was the second time that the Black King had teleported him to another place. Damn it, even if I die in the future, I will not let the Black King teleport me, Zhuowen thought to himself. After calming down, he took out the starry sky map. After confirming his current location, he sent out the space-time roulette and flew toward the encampment of the starry sky battlefield. When Zhuowen returned to the encampment of the human race in the starry sky battlefield, he immediately realized that the atmosphere in the encampment was not right. Most of the cultivators in the encampment were in a hurry and were ready to go. It was as if they were preparing for the upcoming battle. When he landed in the eastern encampment, the situation became even more obvious. Moreover, the moment Zhuowen entered the encampment, he used his spiritual force to scan the entire encampment. Zhuowen's spiritual force was very powerful now. It had even surpassed the peak experts of the sky-reaching master. When he scanned with his spiritual force, the 4 Tao Lords really could not detect him. After all, the quality of their spiritual forces was not on the same level. He realized that among the 4 Tao Lords guarding the encampment, the Eastern Tao Lord, Tan Xinghua, was not in the Eastern encampment. The other 3 Tao Lords were present, but they did not look too good. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a strange expression. He felt even more puzzled. Did the 4 Tao Lords encounter some trouble? Among the 4 Tao Lords, Zhuowen liked the Eastern Tao Lord, Tan Xinghua, the most. Zhuowen did not like the other 3 Tao Lords. After all, when he was asked to hand over the foreign race army, only the Eastern Tao Lord, Tan Xinghua, stood up and opposed the rest. Zhuowen disguised himself as a fierce-looking middle-aged man and entered the Eastern encampment. He did not attract too much attention. Sigh, it's such a pity that Tao Lord Tan has fallen just like that. His death was not worth it. Tao Lord Tan should have died in the war against the foreign race. He died in the hands of his own race just like that. His death was not worth it. As soon as Zhuowen landed in the eastern encampment, he heard people sighing and talking beside him. The content of the conversation instantly caused Zhuowen's pupils to shrink. A surge of anger rose in his heart. Chapter 34:19. Crisis in the host region. Fellow Taoists. What happened to Tao Master Tan? I saw him alive and well a while ago. How did he die? Zhuowen stood in front of the two people who were talking about Tan Xinghua and asked with a sincere look. The two of them should be cultivators from the Eastern Space Camp. One of them was rather old, in his 40s. He had a beard and looked very rough. The other was a young cultivator in his 20s. He was fair and clean and had the air of a scholar. The two of them looked at Zhuowen cautiously. The middle-aged man had a strange look on his face as he said, "My friend, don't you know? Sect Master Tan's death has spread like wildfire in the space camp. How can you not know?" Zhuowen explained, "I was in a dangerous place in the space battlefield some time ago and was trapped for a while. I just came out recently. When I returned to the space camp, I heard the two of you talking about Sect Master Tan. I was curious, so I wanted to ask about the details." As he spoke, Zhuowen gave the two of them a few high-grade Heavenly Path Origin crystals. After the two of them accepted the Heavenly Path Origin crystals, their expressions relaxed. They looked at each other. The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Since you are so sincere, I will tell you. This is not a secret. Now all 4 space camps know about it. This matter started from the sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Een Corp sect, Sakyamuni." Then the middle-aged man began to speak. Zhuowen listened quietly. However, the more he listened, the more gloomy his expression became. From the middle-aged man's narration, Zhuowen finally understood what had happened in the host region. He also knew why Tan Xinghua had died, and it all started from the 10 Ultimates Een Corp's sect in the host region. The previous sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Een Corp sect, Senki Een, suddenly died not long after Zhuowen left the Xianmi Sky region. As Senki Yin's direct disciple, Sakyamuni took over as the new sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Een Corp sect. After Sakyamuni became the new sect leader, the 10 Ultimates Een Corp's sect had been very peaceful. However, in the past 2 months, Indra had suddenly adopted a thunderous strategy. He had led the army of the Een Corp sect of the 10 Extremes to attack the Tao Palace forces of the host region, Fallen Star Mountain, Void Palace, and Sun Chasing Temple. The sect leaders of these 3 Tao Palace forces were all captured by Sakyamuni. And after Indra used thunderous methods to take down these 3 Tao Palace level forces, it shook the entire Xianmi heavenly domain. There was an unwritten rule between the Tao Palace factions, which stated that they were not allowed to attack each other's territories and start a war. After all, Tao Palace forces were the symbol of every precept domain. They had deep foundations, and once a war broke out, the impact would be terrifying. It would implicate many other small and medium-sized forces. Once a Tao Palace faction started a war by any means necessary, the other Tao Palace factions would join forces to suppress them. Originally, the Scarlet Mountain Manor, Falling Star Mountain Manor, Sun Chasing Temple, and Void Palace had formed an alliance when the 10 Extremities Een Corp's sect started the war. But what was even more frightening was that the new sect master of the 10 Ultimate Een Corp's sect, Sakyamuni, was terrifyingly powerful, far surpassing the sect masters of the other 4 Tao Palaces. Of the sect lords of the 4 great Tao Palaces, only the sect lord of the Scarlet Mountain Villa managed to escape. The other 3 sect lords were severely injured and captured alive. Other than that, what was even more shocking was that the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect had used something called the Dead Man's Flower. When the Dead Man Flower was planted in a cultivator's body, it could instantly absorb a cultivator's lifetime of cultivation and bloom into a bright flower. Cultivators of the 10 Extremities Een Corp sect could advance quickly by absorbing the Dead Man Flower. Because of this heaven-defying item, the cultivators of the 10 Extremities Een Corp sect were generally stronger than the other Tao Palaces. Even if the other 4 Tao Palaces joined forces, they would still be crushed by the 10 Extremities Een Corp sect. What angered everyone even more was that after the 10 Extremities Een Corp sect took over Falling Star Mountain, Void Palace, and Sun Chasing Temple, the cultivators of the three great factions, were all used to plant the dead man's flower. Almost no one survived. After the Scarlet Mountain Villa's sect, Lord's army was defeated. He fled back to the Scarlet Mountain Villa and activated the sect-protecting array. He also told the Eastern Sect Master, Tan Xinghua, about what had happened in the host region. Tan Xinghua was the Eastern Sect Master and also the overlord of the host region. Now that such a big thing had happened in the host region, Tan Xinghua naturally couldn't sit still. He led an elite team into the host region and headed to the Ten Extremities Een Corp sect. When the various factions of the host region saw Tan Xinghua personally take action, they were all filled with hope. They felt that if Tan Xinghua took action, Sakyamuni of the Ten Extremities Een Corp sect would be defeated without a doubt. Even the sect lord of the Scarlet Mountain Villa was filled with anticipation. Like everyone else, he thought that no matter how strong Sakyamuni was, he would still be defeated without a doubt if Tan Xinghua took action. After all, Tan Xinghua was a sky-reaching middle-stage expert. His strength was unparalleled and far surpassed all the cultivators in the host region. However, the battle between Tan Xinghua and Sakyamuni shocked everyone. Sakyamuni only used 3 moves to severely injure Tan Xinghua. His body was destroyed, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. After that, he was taken away by Sakyamuni. Although no one really saw Tan Xinghua fall, everyone knew that Tan Xinghua would definitely die if he fell into Sakyamuni's hands. It's Sakyamuni. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He found it unbelievable. How did the Nadi Shiva's strength increase so quickly? Was it because of the dead man's flower? Zhuowen's face turned ugly. When he found the dead man's flower in the underground space of the Ten Extremities Een Corp sect, he knew that the dead man's flower would definitely be a disaster in the future. Therefore, he destroyed all the dead man's flowers in the underground space. However, he left a dead man's flower and later gave it to the Pale Dao Immortal Alliance's leader, Ji Wuming. However, it was precisely because of this that Ji Wuming spent a lot of money to hire the blood prison assassins to kill him. Later, he found out that the dead man's flower was researched by Ji Wuming. This guy was in cahoots with the Ten Extremities Een Corp sect. After knowing that Zhuowen had destroyed most of the dead man's flowers, Ji Wuming killed Zhuowen to silence him. Zhuowen was very sure that he had destroyed all the dead man's flowers in the Ten Extremities Een Corp sect. However, the dead man's flowers had appeared in the Ten Extremities Een Corp sect. He knew that all of this had something to do with Ji Wuming. After all, he had left a dead man's flower for Ji Wuming to appraise and expose the evil deeds of the Een Corp sect of the Ten Extremities. Now, it seemed that Ji Wuming had returned the dead man's flower to the Ten Extremities Een Corp sect. Zhuowen was a little annoyed. When he had returned to the Pale Array Immortal Alliance, he had killed Ji Wuming. He had not thought about the dead man's flower that he had given to Ji Wuming. If he had thought about it, he would have asked Ji Wuming about the whereabouts of the dead man's flower. At that time, he could have followed the clues to the Ten Extremities Een Corp sect and completely destroyed the dead man's flower. Then, this series of troublesome things would not have happened. Fellow Taoist, are you okay? The middle-aged man saw that Zhuowen had been in a daze and could not help but remind him. Zhuowen came back to his senses. He cupped his fists at the middle-aged man and said, "Thank you for telling me so much, fellow Taoist. I still have one question." Chapter 34. 20 sealed, Sect Master Tan has fallen. Did the other 3 sect masters not take any action? The Nadi Shiva's actions have disrupted the balance between the various precept regions. They must be punished, Zhuowen said in a low voice. Sigh, the Nadi Shiva is too powerful. He defeated Sect Master Tan in 3 moves. He is suspected to be a late-stage Tongtian master. The other 3 sect masters are hesitating. Moreover, that Sakra has already said that he was originally a cultivator from the host region and would only target the host region. He wouldn't touch the other Tao regions. That's why the 3 Tao masters haven't made a move until now. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with anger. He was very dissatisfied with the 3 sect masters' actions. Zhou expression was not good. The 4 sect masters were supposed to be on the same side. Now that Tan Xinghua had fallen, the Eastern Precept region had been disrupted by the 10 ultimate Yin Corp sect, and they had spread evil things like the dead flower. If the 10 ultimate Yin Corp's sect continued to develop, it would definitely threaten the other precept regions. As for the promise made by Sakyamuni, Zhuowen felt that it was no different from a fart. Although Zhuowen despised the actions of the 3 sect masters, he did not intend to look for them. His identity was very sensitive now. If he was exposed, it would be very troublesome. Now that he had heard about the situation in the host region, Zhuowen was very worried that Ryuka would be involved. Therefore, he only wanted to rush back to the host region as soon as possible. "Thank you, my friend." Zhuowen cupped his hands and thanked the middle-aged man. Then he hurried toward the teleportation array of the Eastern Cosmic Camp. When Zhuowen arrived at the teleportation array to the host region, he found that the teleportation array to the Eastern Precept region had been blocked. "Why did you close the teleportation array to the host region?" "Our sect is still in the host region. It is being invaded by the 10 ultimate Yin Corp sect. We have to rush back to help." "Yes." "Why did you close the teleportation array?" "You have no right. The Eastern Cosmic Camp belongs to Sect Master Tan, not you. Open the teleportation array and let us go." Many cultivators had gathered at the teleportation array. These cultivators had heard about what had happened in the host region and wanted to return to their respective sections. After all, in the sect, there were their senior and junior brothers, relatives, masters, disciples, and other close people. How could they sit still when something so big happened in the host region? All of them requested to return. The 3 cultivators guarding the teleportation formation all had bitter expressions on their faces. They hurriedly consoled them. "Everyone, please calm down. This is an order from the 3 Tao Lords. No one is allowed to leave the camp. After all, the alien race's army could still invade. The Eastern Space Camp is a very important strategic location. It can't be left empty." The explanation of the 3 cultivators immediately ignited the anger of the crowd. F***CK, our brothers and sisters and our families are all in the host region. You're stopping us from going back, and you're telling us to stay here and guard against the invaders. How dare you say something like that? I don't care about the non-human army. My sect is in deep trouble, and you want me to continue guarding here? F***CK, your sister. Do you really want me to curse your ancestors? Everyone's anger was ignited. Some of them even unleashed their powerful auras, wanting to attack and push the 3 cultivators guarding the teleportation formation away. Although the 3 cultivators were not weak, there were simply too many cultivators gathered outside the teleportation array. There was no lack of powerful cultivators among them. The 3 cultivators were quickly defeated and left the teleportation array with their heads and faces covered in dirt. This teleportation formation is sealed by a sealing force. Who's the formation Tao Master here? Break the sealing force on this teleportation formation. The crowd rushed to the teleportation formation, but was quickly blocked by a sealing force. Everyone's expression was unpleasant. Among them, there were a few cultivators who were proficient in formations. After these cultivators observed the sealing force, their expressions turned ugly. This was because they realized that the sealing force was at the Heaven Ascension level. They had no ability to break it at all. Damn it! It must be a Heaven Ascension level formation Tao Master sent by the other Tao Lords to set up this sealing force around the teleportation formation. Damn it! The crowd was depressed. With the teleportation formation sealed, their chances of leaving the Eastern Space Camp and heading to the Eastern Tao Lord region were slim. Who allowed you to gather here? All of you disperse. Suddenly, a thunderous voice rang out and attracted everyone's attention. A figure swept over from the northern space camp near the eastern space camp and appeared above the crowd in an instant. It was a burly middle-aged man in a light yellow robe. His eyes were filled with arrogance. "It's the Northern Tao Lord, Yao Jianyuan." The crowd immediately noticed the middle-aged man and recognized his identity. Their eyes were filled with fear. Zhuowen, who was mixed in the crowd, looked at Yao Jianyuan with a gloomy expression. He could sense a murderous intent from Yao Jianyuan. "I've already told the other 2 Tao Lords that will take care of the matters in the eastern Tao Lord region. However, you gathered here to cause trouble. Are you looking down on us Tao Lords? Now, return to your positions. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Yao Jianyuan said coldly. The aura of a Heaven Ascension Master in the intermediate stage suddenly erupted and spread around the teleportation formation like a tide. The cultivators who had gathered around the teleportation formation felt Yao Jianyuan's terrifying aura and retreated. He was an elite in the intermediate stage of the Heaven Ascension Master and a Tao Lord. He was not someone they could go against. To put it bluntly, in Yao Jianyuan's eyes they were just ants. "Tao Lord Yao, you keep saying that you'll take care of the matters in the eastern Tao Lord region. However, you haven't done anything. Now, you're even stopping us from leaving the eastern space camp. Is there any logic in this? Moreover, we're free to enter the eastern space camp. Now that you're restricting our freedom, aren't you violating the rules of the space camp?" Someone in the crowd retorted. "Humph. The foreign tribe army may attack at any time. If you leave and the foreign tribe army invades, the entire space camp may be destroyed. Who's going to take responsibility for this? I'm the Tao Lord. Of course, I have to take responsibility for the space camp." Yao Jianyuan said coldly. "Haha, when the foreign tribe army invaded, you didn't do much either. Instead, you wanted to surrender. If it wasn't for Master Zhua, the space camp would have been destroyed. It's all because of Master Zhua that the space camp was saved. It has nothing to do with you. If Master Zhua or Tao Lord didn't allow us to leave, we would have obeyed. However, you don't have the right to do so." Chapter 34:21. Yao Jianyuan's Fury. Yao Jianyuan's face darkened. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he looked at the cultivator who had just spoken. Whoosh! Yao Jianyuan attacked decisively. Violent energy swept out and set off a terrifying storm. Many of the cultivators below were swept away by the storm and fell to the ground. Some of the cultivators were even worse off. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and their faces were pale. The cultivator who had mocked Yao Jianyuan was pale. Just as he was about to retreat, his neck was restrained by an energy. Then his feet left the ground and he was lifted into the air. He floated in front of Yao Jianyuan. "You've got guts. How dare you mock me? I am the Tao Lord of the North. You're just a soldier of the Starry Sky Camp. How dare you offend me? What a joke!" Yao Jianyuan said darkly. The cultivator's face was terrifyingly pale. His body was trembling, but he was unyielding. He said hoarsely, "Am I wrong? Isn't Master Zhua the one who defeated the alien army? What did you do back then? The alien army has retreated into the primitive, celestial domain. They won't be able to make a comeback in a short time. Our sect is in deep trouble, but you're stopping us from going back to help our sect. Aren't your intentions sinister? Or rather, you're in cahoots with Sakyamuni from the host domain." Yao Jianyuan's face turned even uglier. He was furious. "Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish." As he spoke, energy surged in Yao Jianyuan's hand. The cultivator in Yao Jianyuan's hand looked like he was about to die. He knew that he couldn't survive in the hands of a mid-stage Tao Lord like Yao Jianyuan. The cultivators below couldn't bear to see him die. They were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. Yao Jianyuan was too powerful. Moreover, he was a Tao Lord. Even if he killed a cultivator, He only needed to pin a crime on him, and he wouldn't be punished. Bang! Just as Yao Jianyuan was about to kill the cultivator, a powerful energy swept out from the crowd and hit Yao Jianyuan's arm with great precision. Yao Jianyuan was not prepared at all. All his attention was focused on the cultivator in his hand. Puchi! The energy was as sharp as a blade as it landed on Yao Jianyuan's arm. Following that, a muffled Puchi sound was heard. Yao Jianyuan's arm exploded into a bloody mist. His right hand was actually blasted into fine powder by the energy. Blood splattered everywhere. As soon as Yao Jianyuan's arm exploded, the cultivator whose neck was in Yao Jianyuan's grasp immediately retreated at top speed. At the same time, the cultivator who was out of danger was also dumbfounded. He was prepared to die, but who would have thought that Yao Jianyuan's right hand would suddenly explode? However, he quickly realized that there must be some expert secretly helping him. All the cultivators present were dumbfounded. They didn't expect something like this to happen. It was too unexpected. As a Tao Lord, Yao Jianyuan's strength stood at the peak of the astral battlefield. In the space camp, no one was a match for Yao Jianyuan, but now the powerful Yao Jianyuan's right arm had exploded so easily. This was probably something only an expert of the same level could do. At the thought of this, everyone's gaze shot to the back of the crowd at the same time. There was a fierce-looking, middle-aged man. Many people saw clearly that the energy that exploded Yao Jianyuan's right arm was unleashed by this middle-aged man. Who is this person? I don't think I've seen this person before. I'm not sure either. He's never seen this person before either. However, this person is very powerful. He actually injured Tao Lord Yao. This isn't something an ordinary cultivator can do. The crowd discussed fervently. They all subconsciously retreated, far away from Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen injured Yao Jianyuan, they all knew that it was a sneak attack. Now that this person was exposed, he would have to suffer Yao Jianyuan's wrath. This was going to be bad. Although they were very resentful towards Yao Jianyuan for stopping them from leaving the Eastern Space Camp, they were just complaining. However, they didn't dare to attack Yao Jianyuan, who was a highly respected Tao Lord. This was a place where people would die. They wouldn't really offend Yao Jianyuan. Now, this middle-aged man attacked without saying anything and even injured Yao Jianyuan. This guy was simply courting death. They didn't dare to get too close to this guy in case they were implicated. The cultivator who escaped from Yao Jianyuan's attack also noticed Zhuowen. He cupped his hands towards Zhuowen to express his gratitude, but he didn't have any intention of getting closer. His eyes were filled with fear. He had just walked between life and death and had a lingering fear in his heart. He didn't dare to offend Yao Jianyuan again. Zhuowen naturally noticed the crowd's sudden separation and guessed what they were thinking. He didn't care too much and raised his head to look at Yao Jianyuan. At this moment, Yao Jianyuan's gaze also landed on Zhuowen. His face was extremely gloomy and his expression was terrifyingly cold. He suppressed the anger in his chest and looked at Zhuowen as if he was looking at a dead man. "How dare you sneak an attack on me?" Yao Jianyuan took a deep breath and said in a cold voice that was filled with killing intent. Zhuowen's expression was calm as he said, "Tao Lord Yao, you better not slander me like this. When did I sneak an attack on you? I was only trying to save that fellow cultivator. Speaking of which, you're the one who's been bullying us. We're free to enter and leave the space camp. Now you're restricting our freedom. What's the meaning of this? Moreover, this is the Eastern Space Camp and you're only the Tao Lord of the Northern Space Camp. If Tao Lord Tan were to give us orders, we'd accept it wholeheartedly. But who do you think you are? You've crossed the line by ordering us around." Zhuowen's voice was very calm, but his words were filled with hostility. Every word he said was filled with sarcasm towards Yao Jianyuan. Yao Jianyuan couldn't stand Zhuowen's sarcasm. He said coldly, "Brother Tan and I are like brothers. Now that he's no longer around, I naturally have the responsibility to maintain order in the Eastern Space Camp. I don't want a troublemaker like you to cause chaos in the camp. Like brothers? If that's the case, then Dao Lord Yao should go to the host region to find Sakyamuni and take revenge for Dao Lord Tan. What's the point of talking here? Are you trying to show off your ignorance and cowardice? Zhuowen laughed coldly. How dare you offend me again and again? You're courting death. Yao, Jianyuan couldn't take it anymore. Every word Zhuowen said was like a sharp sword that stabbed into his heart. He was speechless. In the end, he chose to use violence to suppress Zhuowen. He wanted to kill Zhuowen directly. Yao Jianyuan was very confident in himself. This cultivator who appeared out of nowhere was quite strong. However, he only managed to break one of Yao Jianyuan's arms by sneaking an attack. Chapter 3422.8sa Footpad at this moment. Yao Jianyuan made his move. With a flip of his hand, he blasted out a palm strike. Terrifying energy exploded, as if the 9 heavens' profound thunder had descended upon the world. The continuous explosion was terrifying. The moment Yao Jianyuan made his move, the momentum was so great that all living beings in the star battlefield could feel it. The 2 Tao masters, LV Yeliang and Mei Zi, and who were originally in charge of the Western Cosmic Campsite, were also awakened. The 2 of them walked out of their seclusion and looked towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. Over at the Cosmic Campsite, a terrifying energy appeared in the sky. It had the power to destroy the world and swept over. It was abnormally terrifying and eye-catching. Is this Yao Jianyuan's aura? Is he crazy? Why is he attacking the Eastern Cosmic Campsite? Is he going to destroy the Eastern Cosmic Campsite? The Western Tao Master, LV Yeliang, looked gloomy. He took a step forward and rushed towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. What is Yao Jianyuan doing? The Southern Tao Master, Mei Ziyin, couldn't hold back either. He also took a step forward and rushed towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. Not only LV Yeliang and Mei Zi, but the other cultivators in the Cosmic Campsite were also awakened. They all gathered towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite, wanting to see what was going on in the Eastern Cosmic Campsite that caused such a terrifying energy fluctuation. As the crowd gathered towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite, Yao Jianyuan floated in midair like a god or a demon. His remaining left hand had already struck out. The powerful energy condensed into a golden palm the size of a mountain. It whistled through the air and landed on top of Zhuowen's head. The cultivators near Zhuowen had already retreated far away. They looked at the golden palm in shock. They knew that Yao Jianyuan was really angry. He didn't hold back in this attack. Its power was too terrifying. It felt as if the entire world was going to collapse because of this palm, especially the cultivators who had complained about Yao Jianyuan before. After feeling the terror of this attack, their faces turned pale. They swore to themselves that they would never speak carelessly in front of Yao Jianyuan again. In the hands of such a powerhouse, they wouldn't even be able to withstand a slap. Boom! The golden palm was very fast, and it landed on Zhuowen's body in an instant. The blazing golden light instantly engulfed Zhuowen's figure, making it impossible for anyone to see him. On the ground where Zhuowen was standing, terrifying cracks began to appear. Then it began to collapse, forming a deep and terrifying pit. It was pitch black like an endless abyss. This fellow Taoist is dead for sure. It was fine if he just moved his mouth, but he might not even be killed. He's got some guts, actually daring to make a move. Now that he's angered Taoist Yao, this is the only outcome. The surrounding cultivators shook their heads and sighed. When they saw Zhuowen being killed just like that, they felt a little sad for him. After unleashing that palm strike, Yao Jianyuan slowly retracted his right hand and placed it behind his back. His eyes shone with arrogance as he looked around. When he saw that everyone was as silent as cicadas in winter, their eyes filled with fear and reverence, he felt very satisfied. It seemed that the effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey was not bad. In the future, The cultivators of the eastern camp would no longer dare to oppose him. Although his right arm was broken and he was angry, he felt that killing the cultivator who offended him was too easy on him. However, he was also quite pleased to receive such an obvious effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey. This is your full strength attack? The so-called Taoist master's strength seems to be a little weak. Just as everyone was discussing and Yao Jianyuan was feeling proud, a cold and ruthless voice came from the deep pit below. The sound of footsteps was accompanied by the sound of footsteps. The footsteps were very regular, but when they stopped by everyone's ears, they had a different kind of magic, causing them to involuntarily stop talking and freeze in place. The expression on Yao Jianyuan's face instantly froze. His eyes almost popped out as he stared at the pit below. There a figure slowly appeared. He was very familiar with this figure. It was the middle-aged man he thought was dead for sure. When Zhuowen completely appeared in front of everyone, the clothes on his upper body had been completely torn, revealing his strong body. Moreover, his body exuded a glazed brilliance that constantly flowed around him, as if he was forged from the most exquisite jade in the world. Everyone was in disbelief. They had indeed seen Yao Jianyuan's full strength attack smash down on Zhuowen's body with the golden palm. However, there was no wound on Zhuowen's body, and not even a drop of blood flowed out. How terrifying was this guy's physical body? It actually withstood the full strength attack of a Taoist master in the middle stage. It was really unbelievable. Yao Jianyuan was also shocked, especially when he saw Zhuowen's perfect physical body. He felt his hair stand on end and felt a sense of panic. Courtesy demands reciprocity. You had a good time beating me up just now. Now it's my turn. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a wicked smile. His right foot suddenly kicked off, and he shot out like an arrow from a bow. Yao Jianyuan's expression changed drastically. He immediately took out his life artifact and protected his chest. This was a heart-protecting mirror, forged from bronze and flowing with a golden luster. It was very extraordinary. Zhuowen's fist smashed into the heart-protecting mirror, and a terrifying power exploded out. Cracks actually appeared on the heart-protecting mirror, and then it shattered into pieces, shattering into countless pieces. Then, Zhuowen's fist was like a rainbow that pierced through the shattered heart-protecting mirror and ruthlessly smashed into Yao Jianyuan's chest. Pucci! Blood splattered. Yao Jianyuan's eyes widened and his body trembled as he looked at his chest in disbelief. He saw that Zhuowen's fist had penetrated his chest, and blood spurted out from his back, splashing into the air and sprinkling down, turning into a rain of blood. And his heart, under the terrifying force of the fist, had already exploded into pieces. Cough! Yao Jianyuan coughed out a mouthful of blood. He stared at Zhuowen. Until now, he still couldn't believe that he had been defeated just like that. In just one move, he was beaten half to death and was now on the verge of death. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He suddenly shook his right fist, and Yao Jianyuan grunted and kept retreating, escaping from Zhuowen's fist. But the moment he escaped from Zhuowen's fist, his chest was ruthlessly trampled by a foot. His sternum caved in, and he fell to the ground like a meteor, smashing a deep human-shaped hole in the ground. Yao Jianyuan tried to stretch out his hands to support his body, trying to stand up. Unfortunately, he had no chance. Zhuowen landed on the ground, and his feet were on his chest, using him as a cushion to stand. At this moment, all the surrounding cultivators were dumbfounded. Looking at this extremely dramatic scene, they wondered if they were hallucinating. It was unbelievable that Yao Jianyuan had been defeated so easily. Chapter 34:23. Ruthless. Ah! Yao Jianyuan roared angrily. He felt extremely humiliated. He was the Northern Taoist master, one of the highest commanders in the Star Wars battlefield. He had a noble status, but now he was being stepped on by Zhuowen in front of everyone. His posture was too ugly. Divine light flashed on Yao Jinyuan's body. He was about to explode, but he was suppressed by Zhuowen and could not move. "Do you want to die so badly?" Zhuowen's foot stomped down on Yao Jinyuan's mouth. A powerful force exploded out, and Yao Jinyuan's jaw was dislocated. His flesh and blood were mangled, and his voice became indistinct. He couldn't make the correct sound. "It's finally quiet." Zhuowen clapped his hands. The surrounding cultivators were all dumbfounded. They cursed in their hearts, "This guy is too fierce." Not only did he step on Yao Jianyuan like a stepping stone, he even stepped on his mouth because he thought he was noisy. This is a little too horrible to look at. Yao Jianyuan was terrified. His jaw was badly mangled, and the intense pain almost made Yao Jianyuan faint. He did not dare to scream anymore. The guy in front of him did not play by the rules. He was so unscrupulous. He was really afraid that if he angered this guy, he would attack fiercely and kill him. Whoosh, whoosh. At that moment, 2 streams of light suddenly appeared above the eastern starry sky campsite. A powerful aura filled the entire eastern starry sky campsite. Everyone looked up and saw 2 dignified men. One of the men was wearing a long yellow robe. He had a high nose bridge and was quite handsome. The man in the yellow robe was the Western Taoist master, LV Yelyang. The other man in the silver robe was the Southern Taoist master, Mei Xin. The arrival of the 2 Taoist masters caused an uproar. All the cultivators were in an uproar. In addition, above the other 3 camps, there were many figures flashing and flying over. They were like a swarm of locusts, densely packed together. They knew that the terrifying battle here had attracted the attention of the cultivators in the other starry sky campsites. Mei Xin and LV Yelyang hovered above the eastern space camp. They immediately saw the huge crater below them and the terrifying energy waves that had yet to dissipate. It wasn't hard to imagine how terrifying the battle he had just experienced was. Then, the 2 of them finally saw Yao Jianyuan. When they saw Yao Jianyuan lying on his back in the pit, his chin was almost broken, and he couldn't even speak clearly. A figure stepped on Yao Jianyuan's chest, using him as a footrest. The 2 of them fell silent, and then they were shocked. That guy was actually using the Tao Lord of the Northern Daolord's body as a stepping stone. As for Zhuowen, under Mei Xin and LV Yelyang's dumbfounded gazes, he used his feet to rub Yao Jianyuan's chest, causing Yao Jianyuan to wail in pain. Then, Zhuowen straightened his body, straightened his back, and put his hands behind his back. He pretended to look deep as he looked at Mei Xin and LV Yelyang. It was as if he was invincible and lonely in the world. When Yao Jianyuan saw Zhuowen stepping on him to show off, he was so angry that he almost jumped up and fought with his life. He wanted to slap Zhuowen to the ground and let him know why the flowers were so red. However, he didn't dare and could only fantasize in his heart, because Zhuowen had already shown him why the flowers were so red. If he dared to move, there was no telling which part of his body would bloom again. Who is this guy? Mei Xin was stunned. He was completely frightened by Yao Jianyuan's miserable state. He looked at Zhuowen with fear, especially Zhuowen's demeanor of an expert. Mei Xin and LV Yelyang were afraid of attacking him. They cursed him in their hearts. "I don't know this guy, but I guess he was the one who fought with Brother Yao just now. This guy is not simple. Look, he is intact and has no injuries at all. This is incredible," LV Yelyang said with fear in his voice. Mei Xin nodded. He also found it incredible. Yao Jianyuan was an expert in the middle stage of the Sky-Reaching Lord. He was one of the 4 Path Lords on the starry battlefield. He had a high status and great strength. In the Xianmi Heavenly Territory, there was no one who could be a match for Yao Jianyuan. No one in the Xianmi Heavenly Territory could threaten Yao Jianyuan unless it was a real expert from the Sky-Reaching place. But now, Yao Jianyuan had been beaten to a pulp by this show-off in front of them. Was this guy really an expert from the sky-reaching place? Thinking of this, the two of them were even more afraid. Mei Zian cupped his hands to Zhou and said, "Fellow Taoist, which force of the sky-reaching place do you come from?" Zhou, who had just finished showing off, wanted to continue to pretend to be profound. But when he heard Mei Zian's question, he was dumbfounded. He hadn't even been to the sky-reaching place. He didn't even know which forces were in the sky-reaching place, let alone which force he belonged to. But Zhou knew that he had to finish showing off, even if he had to hold back his tears. His gaze turned cold and deep as he coldly scrutinized Mei Zian and LV Yelyang. When the two of them felt their scalps tingle, he said indifferently, "You are not qualified for me to tell you who I am. Today, I came down from the sky-reaching place and wanted to go to the host region to have a look. But I found that the transmitting formation was sealed. That's not all. This idiot came and made a big fuss. He even threatened us and threatened to kill me. He said I was like an ant. I've always had a good temper, but this idiot insulted me. I couldn't stand it, so I taught him a lesson and let him broaden his horizons." Yao Jianyuan, who was being stepped on by Zhou, heard Zhou call him an idiot. He rolled his eyes to protest against Zhou's impudence. Of course, Yao Jianyuan's petty actions were noticed by Zhou. He also made Yao Jianyuan pay a small price. He trampled on Yao Jianyuan's eyes. Yao Jianyuan screamed in pain and didn't dare to open his eyes again. Seeing Yao Jianyuan's miserable state, LV Yelyang and Mei Zian's eyelids twitched. It was too humiliating for a Taoist master to be beaten like this. Of course, this made Mei Zian and LV Yelyang even more afraid of Zhou. Their strength was almost the same as Yao Jianyuan's. Now that Yao Jianyuan was in such a miserable state, even if they attacked, they might not end up well. So they didn't dare to attack. Moreover, the two of them had long regarded Zhou as an expert who had come down from the sky-reaching place. He must have a strong background. They couldn't afford to offend him. If they offended him, they would be finished. After Zhou taught Yao Jianyuan a lesson in front of everyone, the latter immediately became obedient and played dead. Chapter 34:24. Dumbfounded, Mei Zian and LV Yelyang were very wary of Zhou. They spoke to Zhou courteously and cautiously, afraid of offending this ruthless person in front of them. Zhou's gaze deepened, and he looked like a lonely master. He said pretentiously, "Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to know my name?" As soon as this was said, everyone was stunned. This guy was too pretentious. He directly said that Mei Zian and LV Yelyang did not have the right to know his name. These two were the Tao masters of the star battlefield, the strongest mid-stage heavenly master. They were the strongest in the Xian Mi heavenly region. Normally, everyone would be extremely respectful and cautious towards these two people. Now, these two Tao masters had lowered themselves and asked Zhou for his name. He actually said that they did not have the right to know his name. This was too arrogant. Mei Zian and LV Yelyang were speechless, and their expressions were ugly. If they had not seen Yao Jianyuan's miserable state, they would have exploded. Mei Zian forced a smile and said, "Since you are unwilling to reveal your name, we will not force you. However, Yao Jianyuan is the Tao Master of the North and the representative of the star battlefield. Shouldn't you let him go?" Zhou looked at Mei Zian and LV Yelyang and said, "I am not a troublemaker. The reason I beat this idiot up was because he tried to kill me first. Now that he has received the punishment he deserves, we are barely even." Yao Jianyuan, who was lying on the ground pretending to be dead, frowned slightly when he heard Zhou's words. However, he was cursing in his heart. "You were the one who attacked me first. I was just defending myself. You beat me up like this, as if you were wronged. I am so king wronged." Yao Jianyuan kept complaining in his heart, but he still pretended to be dead. He was really scared of Zhou. It was safer to pretend to be dead now. When Mei Zian and LV Yelyang heard Zhuan's words, they heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. They were really afraid that this ruthless person would go crazy and kill Yao Jianyuan. If Yao Jianyuan were to die, it would be a huge matter, and the northern space camp would be in chaos. The eastern space encampment was already chaotic enough. If the northern space encampment fell into chaos as well, the entire Star Wars battlefield would be in chaos. By then, it would truly be over. Tan Xinghua had already fallen. If Yao Jianyuan also fell, then the Star Wars battlefield would really be in chaos. Therefore, the two of them would never allow Yao Jianyuan to die. After all, his death would have a great impact on the human race. Then shouldn't you let Brother Yao go, fellow Taoist? LV Yelyang finally spoke. His tone was very polite. Zhuowen wasn't in a hurry. He said indifferently, "The reason why I had a conflict with this idiot was mainly because of this transmission array. I've already told you that I'm going to the host region to settle some matters. But this idiot insisted on stopping us, so I had no choice but to teach him a lesson. Now, I still have the same problem. If this problem can be solved, then what's wrong with returning this idiot to you?" Zhuowen's feet were still on Yao Jianyuan's body. He was very calm and wanted LV Yelyang and Mei Zian to solve the problem of the transmission array. Hearing this, Mei Zian and LV Yelyang suddenly looked troubled. The problem of the transmission array. Mei Zian and LV Yelyang hesitated and stuttered. "What? Is there a problem?" Zhuowen raised his eyebrows and moved his right foot fiercely on Yao Jianyuan's body. Yao Jianyuan, who was pretending to be dead, grimaced in pain. He couldn't pretend anymore and began to scream. "No problem. Absolutely no problem." Yao Jianyuan grimaced and immediately begged for mercy. He didn't want to argue about the transmission array anymore. He was afraid that if he continued to struggle, he would really be killed by Zhuowen, so he immediately compromised on this issue. LV Yelyang and Mei Zian saw that Yao Jianyuan had completely surrendered. They looked at each other and nodded. "We'll solve the problem of the transmission array for you. Now, I'll find you a formation Tao master to break this sealing power. This might take some time." "I don't have that much time," Zhuowen said coldly. As soon as he said this, LV Yelyang and Mei Zian's expressions turned ugly. Their gazes were gloomy. They felt that Zhuowen was forcing them. Mei Zian said awkwardly, "My friend, you're making things difficult for us. The sealing power around this transmission array is of heaven level. It needs to be broken by a heaven-level formation Tao master, and it's not something that can be broken in a short time. It's impossible for you to break this sealing power immediately." Zhuowen shook his head and said, "It's okay. I can break this sealing power. Just don't disturb me." With that, Zhuowen picked up Yao Jianyuan, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog, and walked toward the transmission array. At this moment, there was no one around the transmission array. Most of the cultivators had already left when Zhuowen and Yao Jianyuan were fighting. Although Zhuowen's voice was not loud, everyone heard him clearly. When they heard that Zhuowen was going to break the sealing power around the transmission array himself, they all had strange expressions on their faces. They had a full understanding of Zhuowen's strength. They knew that the former was very powerful, but they didn't believe that Zhuowen's formation Tao was that high. LV Yelyang and Mei Zian also had strange expressions on their faces. They didn't expect that Zhuowen was going to break the sealing power himself. Was he going to break the sealing power by force? Yao Jianyuan, who was in Zhuowen's hand, looked askance at Zhuowen and rolled his eyes at him. Obviously, this guy didn't believe that Zhuowen could break the sealing power. Zhuowen, on the other hand, directly punched Yao Jianyuan, causing Yao Jianyuan to scream miserably and almost faint. "My friend, shouldn't you let Brother Yao go now?" Mei Zian asked in a low voice. "Don't worry. After I break the sealing power around the transmission array, I'll naturally let this idiot go." Zhuowen said casually. Zhuowen came to the front of the transmission array and walked around it, silently deducing in his heart. When he stopped, he already had an answer. Then he took out the beast bone formation disk from the macro world and threw it out, surrounding the transmission array. This guy really knows about formation Tao. LV Yeliang and Mei Zian both had strange expressions on their faces. When they saw Zhuowen pretending to break the sealing power, they secretly wondered if this guy was just putting on an act. The people around them had similar thoughts as LV Yeliang and Mei Zian. They didn't quite believe that Zhuowen really had the ability to break the formation. Zhuowen didn't care about what the others thought. He was concentrating on his deduction. When the beast bone disk array that was revolving around the teleportation array completely stopped rotating, a wave of energy ripples suddenly swept out in all directions. Then the sealing power around the transmission array actually disappeared and was annihilated into nothingness. Chapter 34, 25. Bad news. This guy really broke the immortal grade seal around the teleportation formation, and he did it in less than 10 minutes? Mei Zian felt unwell all over. He was really shocked. It should be known that the Heaven Ascension Divine Master they had found in the alchemy array Tao Domain had spent 10 days and 10 nights to set up such a powerful sealing force. However, this guy had managed to break the seal in less than 10 minutes. Did this not mean that this guy's array Tao level was much higher than the immortal grade array Tao Master they had found from the alchemy array Tao Domain? Not only Mei Zian, but LV Yeliang, who was standing next to Mei Zian, was also stunned. His mouth was wide open, and he did not know what to say. As for the many cultivators in the space camp who were watching, they all became mutes. Their eyes were wide open as they stared blankly at the figure in front of the teleportation array that was as straight as a spear. Zhuowen looked calmly at the teleportation formation that had appeared in front of him. He had been studying the true record of alchemy arrays all the time and had inherited part of the legacy of the alchemy array Celestial Master. His alchemy array level was one of the highest in the universe. Zhuowen could tell at a glance that the seal around the teleportation formation was set up by an ordinary immortal grade array Tao Master. It was not difficult for him to break it. "I'll return this idiot to you." Zhuowen picked up Yao Jianyuan, who was lying on the ground, and threw him to Mei Zian and LV Yeliang without hesitation. He stepped into the teleportation formation, took out the corresponding heavenly Tao origin crystal, and activated the teleportation formation. White light surged, and Zhuowen disappeared from the teleportation formation. Not long after Zhuowen left the teleportation formation, the cultivators in the eastern camp were in an uproar. They rushed toward the teleportation formation, took out their heavenly Tao origin crystals, and planned to teleport away from the eastern camp. They were all disciples of the major sects in the host region, so how could they possibly ignore such a huge incident and stay in the eastern camp? For a moment, the area around the teleportation formation was bustling. Many cultivators were rushing to teleport away, and white light kept flashing. Mei Zian took over the half-dead Yao Jianyuan and stopped LV Yeliang, who was about to give chase. "Brother Liu, you are no match for this person. For this person to be able to beat Brother Yao to such an extent, I'm afraid that he's at least a late-stage powerhouse of the Heavenly Master Realm. Furthermore, this person's array Tao level is even more unfathomable. His background must be very great. He's not an existence we can provoke." Mei Zian warned LV Yeliang. Hearing this, LV Yeliang fell silent. He glanced at Yao Jianyuan, who was supported by Mei Zian, and said, "Let's send Brother Yao back first." "Are we still going to stop the teleportation array?" LV Yeliang asked with a dark expression as he looked at the cultivators gathered around the teleportation array. Mei Zian shook his head and said, "Without the sealing power, we can't stop these people. Furthermore, we have already abided by our agreement with Sakyamuni. The expert who came down from the heaven accessing place is an unpredictable variable. He's a factor that we can't fight against. Anyway, we've done our best. Even if the naughty Shiva wants to blame us, they can't blame us. LV Yelyang nodded. He glanced at the scene that was almost out of control at the teleportation array and did not stop it. Instead, he and Mei Ziyin took Yao Jinyuan and left the Eastern Starry Sky camp. Zhuowen appeared in an area full of meteorites. He stood on a huge, floating rock fragment. He immediately took out his jade communication charm and sent a message to his father, Long Xiaotian, mother, Feng Xiao, and Lu Hantian. At present, the three of them were in charge of Ryuka. Since most of the forces in the host region had been conquered by the 10 ultimate Een Corp sect and were basically used as nourishment for the flower of the dead, Zhuowen was a little worried that Ryuka might have been affected as well. The Jade Communication Charm's transmission range was not far. There was also a powerful barrier between the star battlefield and the Xianmi Heavenly Domain, so he could not communicate with the cultivators in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain from the star battlefield. Therefore, the moment he was teleported to the Xianmi Heavenly Domain, he immediately sent a message to Long Xiaotian and the others. Soon, Zhuowen received a response from Long Xiaotian. Zhuowen saw that Long Xiaotian had responded and let out a sigh of relief. Since Long Xiaotian had responded, it at least meant that Long Xiaotian was safe and sound. However, after Zhuowen read the message, his eyes suddenly turned blood red and cold, and a flame of anger rose in his heart. Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, Earth Spirit Society, how dare you have designs on Ryuka? You must be tired of living. Zhuowen's eyes widened, and he took out the space-time roulette and flew towards the Ryuka region. When he had first settled the Ryuka on the old site of the Huangji family, he had given the Ryuka resources that allowed the Ryuka to develop very quickly. They had quickly gained a foothold on the old site of the Huangji family and become a new Dao Palace level faction. With the help of the Lightning God's Garden, the Ryuka was like the sun in the sky in that region. Many nearby Dao Palace level factions were very wary of the Ryuka, and they intimidated everyone. Ryuka's rapid development and reputation gradually rose. In that region, many Dao Palace level factions looked to the Ryuka as their leader. None of the factions doubted that as long as the Dragon Clan was given enough time, or rather, as long as the Dragon Clan could produce a mighty one who had reached the Heavenly Master level, they would immediately be able to leap into the ranks of the Holy Ji Palace. Just as the Ryuka was developing rapidly, the Een Corp sect of the 10 Ultimates launched an indiscriminate attack on the entire host region. The Een Corp sect of the 10 Ultimates breached the Zhue Ri Temple in a short period of time. Most of the disciples and elders of the Zhue Ri Temple were killed, captured, and turned into nutrients for the flower of the dead. In the end, they all died painfully. After breaching the Zhue Ri Temple, the Een Corp sect of the 10 Ultimates breached the mountain gates of the Fallen Star Mountain and the Void Palace. The sect master of the Scarlet Mountain Villa had joined forces with the sect masters of the Fallen Star Mountain and the Void Palace, but he had been severely injured by Sakyamuni. He had fled back to the Scarlet Mountain Villa, where he had activated the protective array and holed up in the Scarlet Mountain Villa. Originally, Sakyamuni had planned to completely destroy the Scarlet Mountain Villa after breaching the Fallen Star Mountain and the Void Palace. However, the Eastern Sect Master, Tan Xinghua, had received a request for help from the Scarlet Mountain Villa's Sect Master. He had come to the host region to suppress Sakyamuni, and he had engaged in an ultimate battle with Sakyamuni in the starry sky. This battle had shaken the entire host region, and it had been an extraordinary battle that had attracted the attention of tens of thousands of people. The two of them had battled for 49 days, and they had caused many planets to explode and star regions to collapse. In the end, Tan Xinghua had been beheaded by Sakyamuni. After this battle, Sakyamuni's name had spread throughout the Xianmi Sky region. Chapter 34:26 Ryuka's crisis out of the 5 Dao Palace forces in the host region. 3 of them were wiped out in an instant. The Scarlet Mountain Manor, which was known as the most powerful Dao Palace force in the host region, was forced to activate their protective array. They could only hole up in a corner, not daring to come out. It had to be said that the 10 Extremes Een Corp Sex battle record was too glorious and terrifying. It had intimidated too many factions. Everyone knew that the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect was so powerful mainly because of Sakyamuni. It was Sakyamuni who had developed the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect to such terrifying heights. Because of this, many Dao palaces and Dao palaces in the host region had attached themselves to the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect, hoping to be protected by the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect and avoid being wiped out. The 10 Extremes Een Corp sect was naturally happy to accept these subordinate factions. They even allowed these subordinate factions to help the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect invade other factions that opposed the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect. The Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society were rather famous Dao palaces in the host region. They were also 3 of the Dao palaces in the host region that had attached themselves to the 10 Extremes Een Corp sect. These 3 factions had joined forces to attack the Ryuka's base. From Long Xiaotian's reply, Zhuowen knew that the Ryuka were having a hard time resisting the combined forces of these 3 factions. Lu Hantian, Woody, and a large number of Ryuka's top experts had suffered serious injuries in this battle. Even Long Xiaotian and his mother, Feng Xiao, had suffered serious injuries. What angered Zhuowen even more was that his grandfather, Long Xiangding, had been ambushed by a spy and was on the verge of death. Many of the Ryuka's alchemists were powerless to save him, and he was now in a coma. Furthermore, Ryuka was already in a precarious situation under the combined attacks of the 3 great powers. If it weren't for the help of the creation-level formation that Zhuowen had left behind, Ryuka would have been destroyed a long time ago. Fortunately, the forces attacking Ryuka this time were only at the level of 3 Dao palaces, and the strongest among them were only at the Genesis level. If the 10 Extremities Een Corp sect had attacked, the Genesis level formation of Ryuka would not have been able to hold on, and Ryuka would have been destroyed in an instant. But even so, Ryuka is almost at the end of its rope. In Long Xiaotian's reply, the former repeatedly warned Zhuowen not to come back, and to stay as far away from the host region as possible. Zhuowen did not reply to Long Xiaotian's message. Instead, he rushed back to Ryuka as soon as possible. With his current strength, he was already standing at the pinnacle of this starry sky. No matter how strong Sakura was, Zhuowen didn't think that Sakura's speed of progress could surpass his and that he would be his opponent. After resolving the crisis in Ryuka, Zhuowen went straight to the 10 Extremities Een Corp sect to kill Sakyamuni. He knew that Sakyamuni had some special ability that allowed him to be reborn from a single drop of blood. This time, not only would he destroy Sakyamuni's soul, but he would also destroy his physical body. He would completely wipe out Sakyamuni's existence from this world. In the conference hall of Ryuka's base, Long Xiaotian was pacing back and forth, his eyes full of anxiety. The conference hall was very large. Other than Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, Lu Hantian, Woody, and other Ryuka's higher-ups were all present. Whether it was Long Xiaotian, Lu Hantian, or the others, their breathing was weak, their faces pale, and some of them even had blood on them. I didn't expect to return to Xianmi celestial region at this time. What a bad time to come back. Long Xiaotian's face was full of anxiety. Feng Xiao stopped Long Xiaotian and said anxiously, "Xiaotian, have you sent one a message? Tell him not to come, to leave the host region and go to a safer precept domain. This is a dangerous place, and it's not a place he can come." Long Xiaotian sighed softly. "I have, but you know Wen-Er's character. He knows the situation in the host region and the danger our Ryuka is in. Even if he knows that it's a dead end, he won't just sit back and do nothing. He will definitely come." Feng Xiao was so anxious that she was about to cry. She was Zhuowen's mother and knew Zhuowen better than anyone else. Just as Long Xiaotian said, Zhuowen would definitely not abandon Ryuka. When Zhuowen had settled them in the Huangji family's base and left Ryuka to explore alone, his cultivation was not even at the level of a creator. They knew that Zhuo was very talented, but even if he had obtained some fortuitous opportunities, his cultivation was only at the level of a creator. With just this level of cultivation, returning to the Long family was simply courting death. Not to mention the fact that the Jade Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society had several creators. Even if Zhuo could help Ryuka fend off the attacks of these three forces, the Ten Extremities Yin Corp sect had many powerful cultivators. Especially after obtaining the Dead Man's Flower, which was a heaven-defying elixir, the number of elites in the Yin Corp sect of the 10 Ultimates had increased rapidly over the years. Could Zhuo defeat such a force? Given Zhuo's character, he will definitely come here without hesitation. What we can do now is to hold on a little longer. Zhuo is not an impulsive person, and he won't just charge in like this. As long as we hold on, Zhuo may find a way to sneak in. I think that when the time comes, we can rely on Zhuo's array formation skills to reposition the base's array formation. Then we will have a chance to fight back. Lu Hantian stood up. His eyes flashed as he analyzed the situation for everyone. Long Xiaotian and Feng Xiao looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They also felt that Lu Hantian's idea was the most practical. Zhuo would definitely come. What they needed to think now was to wait for Zhuo to arrive and find a better way to protect Zhuo. Suddenly, a cultivator hurriedly ran into the meeting hall and shouted in a trembling voice, "Patriarch, something bad has happened. The base's array formation can't hold on for much longer." The people who were originally discussing in the conference hall immediately froze after hearing this sentence. Their eyes were all filled with disbelief. How is that possible? The base's array formation is at the pinnacle of creation level. It is impossible for Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society to break it in such a short time. Long Xiaotian said in shock. The cultivator knelt on one knee and said, "The immortal masters of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance are here. They are here to help Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society break our base's array formation." What? The Pill Array Immortal Alliance is also interfering? Our Ryuka has no enmity with the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. Why would they help Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society go against our Ryuka? Long Xiaotian stared in disbelief. "Xiaotian, let's go out and take a look. If the base's array formation can't hold on, we can only fight with our backs against the wall." Feng Xiao immediately calmed down and said in a low voice. Long Xiaotian also calmed down and said in a low voice, "Let's go out." "Hantian, go and arrange people. If the base's array formation is really broken, then we will fight." Chapter 34:27. Breaking through when Long Xiaotian and the rest walked out of the conference hall, they immediately noticed a youth in a long robe floating above the Ryuka base's large array. His eyes were filled with arrogance. At this moment, the youth was surrounded by array flags. His hands were forming seals as he tried to break the Ryuka base's large array. Under the attack of the long-robed young man, the Long family's encampment's grand array actually started to ripple and spread towards the surroundings. When Long Xiaotian and the others saw the long-robed young man, their expressions changed slightly. This youth was no stranger to them. It's the current alliance leader of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance, Zhu Wenlin. This guy actually came to help break our base's large array. Feng Xiao looked at Zhu Wenlin with an unfriendly gaze. Zhu Wenlin wasn't from the Eastern Dao region. He was a young Pill Array genius sent by the Pill Array Dao region. Speaking of which, Zhu Wenlin had been brought here by Bu Yangrong. Bu Yangrong had come from the Pill Array Dao domain to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance of the host region, mainly to assess whether Zhuo had the qualifications to become the alliance head of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. The result of the test was that Zhuo Wen's pill formation ability was above Zhu Wenlin's. But Bu Yangrong went back on his word and took away Zhuo Wen's position of alliance chief without permission, giving the alliance chief to Zhu Wenlin. Zhuo Wen had never wanted to become the alliance leader. The reason he had taken over the position was because the Pil Array Immortal Alliance members had kicked up a fuss. After Buyangrong and Zhu Wenlin had arrived, the Pil Array Immortal Alliance members had changed their attitudes and supported Zhu Wenlin. Therefore, even though Zhuowen's Pil Array skills were above Zhu Wenlin's, he wasn't in the mood to continue being the alliance leader. After he had resigned from the alliance leader position, he had gone to the Star Wars battlefield. He hadn't expected that he would take so long to return. After Zhuowen's return, the Eastern Dao region had undergone a huge upheaval. All of this was something that Zhuowen hadn't expected, and ever since Zhu Wenlin lost to Zhuowen in the alchemy battle, it could be said that he had always harbored hatred toward Zhuowen in his heart. All these years he had been inquiring about Zhuowen's whereabouts. Once he found out about Zhuowen, Zhu Wenlin would contact many experts to surround and annihilate Zhuowen. Only by thoroughly killing Zhuowen could he resolve the hatred in his heart. Unfortunately, after so many years, Zhu Wenlin hadn't found any traces of Zhuowen. It was as if Zhuowen had vanished into thin air after the Pil Array Immortal Alliance's alliance, Pil Immortal Alliance. Of Zhu Wenlin's Yang, the Immortal Alliance, Immortal Alliances, the Dao Immortal Alliance, Immortal Immortal Alliance, Alliances Immortals, Immortal Alliance of Immortal 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 Alliance, Amon Alliance, Immortal 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 Amon, Immortal 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 Immortals Alliance, Immortal 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 Alliance, Alliance Alliance, Immortal Immortal Formation Array, Dao Immortals. Zhu Wenlin was a genius of the Alchemy Array Dao domain. His status in the Alchemy Array Dao domain wasn't low. Establishing a relationship with such a promising alchemy array genius would only be beneficial to Sakyamuni. Furthermore, Zhu Wenlin had contributed a lot to the cultivation of the Dead Man Flower. When Zhu Wenlin had found out that Zhuowen was a Ryuka disciple, he had rushed over to Ryuka without stopping to help the Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society break the Ryuka encampment's grand array. Zhu Wenlin's request was that after breaking through the Ryuka encampment, he had to bring all the Ryuka's relatives back to the Pil Array Immortal Alliance. Zhu Wenlin's idea was that since he couldn't find Zhuowen, he would vent all his hatred on Zhuowen's relatives. When Zhuowen returned in the future and found out that his relatives had died in his hands, he would probably be in great pain and would take the initiative to find him. At that time, it would be the time of Zhuowen's death. He would invite many experts to encircle and annihilate Zhuowen. Zhu Wenlin's hands quickly formed seals, and the encampment's array shook more and more violently. Ripples of array Dao spread out, like ripples on the surface of a lake, surging outwards. It looked very dazzling and powerful. Behind Zhu Wenlin was a dense army. These armies were divided into 3 camps. They were the Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society. And in front of each of the 3 armies, there was a figure with a vast aura. These 3 figures were the Jasper Dock's sect master Nguyen, the Beast King Gate's sect master Violent Jade Beast, and the Earth Spirit Society's sect master Gongzifen. The 3 of them stood quietly in front of the army. Their eyes flickered as they watched Zhu Wenlin wave the array flag to break the array. It's really easy to have such a divine array master. We don't even need to use a single soldier to break that troublesome array. Jasper Dock's sect master Nguyen laughed. Nguyen looked to be in her 30s. Her skin was whiter than snow, and she had the charm of a mature woman. Her figure was extremely hot, and her every move was filled with charm. Yes, although our sect also has a divine array master, compared to Alliance Master Zhu, they're not even a little bit inferior. Beast King Gates, sect master Violent Jade Beast side. In addition, Alliance Master Zhu comes from the mysterious alchemy array Dao domain. His origin is not simple. Otherwise, Sakyamuni's sect master wouldn't have tried to build a relationship with Alliance Master Zhu. Earth Spirit Society's sect master Gongzifen echoed. The 3 of them were in awe of Zhu Wenlin. They all wanted to build a good relationship with Zhu Wenlin. At this moment, Zhu Wenlin's gaze became more and more arrogant. He even mocked. This is the array set up by Zhouwen? Haha, what a piece of trash. He's as trash as Zhouwen. If I want to break it, it'll be a piece of cake. Zhu Wenlin continued to slander Zhouwen as he broke the array. His words were very unpleasant. The Ryuka people in the array were furious when they heard Zhu Wenlin insult Zhouwen. They felt that Zhu Wenlin had gone too far. Long Xiaotian and the others were also very angry. Feng Xiao even retorted, "You're belittling Winner like this. When you lost to Win, in the alchemy battle of the Pale Array Immortal Alliance, you're far inferior to Win. Isn't that even worse?" Zhu Wenlin, who was originally breaking the array, was furious when he heard Feng Xiao mention the past. The veins on his forehead bulged, and he let out a beast-like roar. The loss of the alchemy battle had always been a pain in Zhu Wenlin's heart. It was also his reverse scale. Now that Feng Xiao mentioned it, Zhu Wenlin was so angry that he almost lost his mind. "Bitch, just you wait. After I break this array, I'll be the first to kill you. Don't worry, I won't kill you immediately. Instead, I'll torture you slowly until you're dead." Zhu Wenlin roared angrily, and his actions became even more fierce and swift. The encampment's grand array rippled violently, and numerous cracks appeared on it. It was obvious that the grand array wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. The Ryuka people in the array were all nervous. Crack! When Zhu Wenlin threw down the last array flag, the encampment's grand array completely shattered into countless transparent fragments that scattered in all directions. Kill! Chapter 34:28 Tails the army descends. When the Ryuka base was completely destroyed, roars of war rang out like thunder, deafening to the ears. The joint army of Jasper Dock, Beast King Sect, and Earth Emanations Association appeared in the sky. Like dark clouds, they shrouded the entire Long family's encampment in shadows. "You Ryuka bastards, you're dead meat." Zhu Wenlin had his hands behind his back as he hovered in midair, looking down at the Ryuka base. His mocking laughter filled the air above the Ryuka base. Long Xiaotian and the rest of the upper echelons were shocked. "Hantian, are you ready?" Long Xiaotian said to Lu Hantian with a serious look in his eyes. At this moment, Lu Hantian was holding a spear and wearing golden armor. Behind him was the Ryuka army. "Patriarch, we're ready." Lu Hantian nodded at Long Xiaotian, then raised his spear and shouted, "Kill! Those who invade the Ryuka will be killed without mercy. Kill! Kill!" The Ryuka army roared like a tidal wave, then, led by Lu Hantian, charged into the sky and clashed with the combined forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society. The two armies clashed, and the air was thick with blood. Blades flashed and swords flashed. It was a magnificent sight. However, the Ryuka army was only half the size of the allied army. The moment they clashed, the Ryuka army was suppressed. However, the Ryuka army was full of vigor and did not fear death. They fought with their lives on the line. Although they were suppressed, it would not be so easy for the allied army to defeat the Ryuka army. Lu Hantian rushed to the front and brandished the long spear in his hand. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. His imposing manner was vast and mighty. Every spear attack was accompanied by splashes of blood. Lu Hantian was very powerful. It was as if he had entered an unstoppable realm. Every spear strike was able to kill dozens of cultivators. Blood splattered everywhere. "Oh, you're Lu Hantian, the Ryuka expert, second only to Long Xiaotian, right? Not bad. You're already a mid-stage creator. Unfortunately, you're going to die today, and you're going to die by my hands." A sinister voice suddenly sounded from Lu Hantian's right. Translation accompanying this sinister voice was a terrifying blast of energy. Its target was the back of Lu Hantian's head. Lu Hantian's eyes narrowed when he felt the terrifying blast of energy behind him. He let out a low roar and twisted his body. He instantly turned around and held his spear in front of him to protect himself. He could feel that the owner of the voice behind him was attacking very quickly. He could not retaliate and could only passively defend. Bam! The terrifying attack fiercely smashed onto the long spear that Lu Hantian was holding, and a formidable power burst out. The surrounding space started to collapse and collapse. Lu Hantian groaned and was involuntarily sent flying. He only managed to stabilize himself after flying back several thousand meters. He looked at the figure standing in front of him. This was a middle-aged man whose entire body was filled with a berserk aura. His upper body was bare, and his firm muscles were exposed to the air like coiling dragons. Just by looking at him, he looked like a wild beast that had gone berserk. Lu Hantian recognized this middle-aged man. This person was the Beast King Gate's sect master, the violent Jade Beast. It was said that this person's physical body was very strong and was not weaker than the powerful experts of the primitive heaven realm. Lu Hantian's eyes were filled with fear. He knew that this violent Jade Beast's cultivation was much higher than his. He was a peak creator. Oh, your reaction is not bad. You were actually able to block my attack. Ordinary god of creation, intermediate stage cultivators would be severely injured if they were hit by my attack. The violent Jade Beast raised his eyebrows, but his gaze fell on Lu Hantian's gilded battle armor. He was not stupid. He naturally saw that the reason why Lu Hantian was not seriously injured was mainly because of the gilded battle armor on his body. Without a doubt, this gilded battle armor was a high-grade divine artifact. Moreover, it was a defensive divine artifact. This was very rare. The violent Jade Beast sneered. Lu Hantian, take the initiative to hand over your gilded battle armor, and I'll give you a quick death. I'll let you die less painfully. Lu Hantian took a deep breath. He had obtained this gilded battle armor by chance. It was a peak creator divine artifact. With this gilded battle armor, although his cultivation was only at the mid-stage of the creator stage, it was enough to fight against a peak creator. He snorted coldly and said, "It's still unknown who will win and who will lose. You want me to hand over my battle armor? I think water has entered your brain." As he spoke, Lu Hantian stomped his right foot and rushed toward the violent Jade Beast like an arrow. Haha, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. You're courting death. The violent Jade Beast's face turned cold. He unleashed his aura, and his entire body emitted a fierce blood aura. He was like a wild beast, unparalleled in the world. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, Lu Hantian and the violent Jade Beast collided fiercely. The violent Jade Beast held a scimitar in its hand, and saber light flowed around its body. It was very terrifying. However, Lu Hantian did not retreat. His spear was like a dragon, and every spear could blast out a terrifying spear shadow. The saber light and spear's shadow collided, and a terrifying power burst out. It spread in all directions, forming one terrifying wave after another in the void. It had to be said that the violent Jade Beast's strength was indeed above Lu Hantian's. Lu Hantian was completely suppressed, and his face was pale. However, the gilded battle armor on Lu Hantian's body was very extraordinary. It emitted bursts of golden light, blocking most of the violent Jade Beast's attacks every time. But even so, Lu Hantian was still severely suppressed by Yishuan. After all, the violent Jade Beast was the sect leader of a Dao Palace level force. Although its cultivation was at the peak of the creator stage, its battle prowess was even more terrifying than ordinary peak creators. For Lu Hantian to be able to tangle with the violent Jade Beast and not be defeated was already very impressive. When Lu Hantian was attacked by the violent Jade Beast, the sect leader of Jasper Doc Inguyun and the Earth Spirit Society sect leader, Gong Zifin, went to find Long Xiaotian and Feng Xiao respectively. As for the other creators of Jasper Doc, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society, they had their eyes on the other higher-ups of Ryuka. Long Xiaotian, it's said that you're the strongest person in Ryuka. However, your cultivation is only at the late stage of the creator stage. I'm afraid you don't live up to your name. Today, Gong Ziffin, will step on you and trample on you wantonly." The Earth Spirit Society's sect leader, Gong Ziffin, appeared in front of Long Xiaotian like a ghost and shot a ray of light at Long Xiaotian. "It's not certain who will be trampled on today." Long Xiaotian snorted coldly. He took out a saber and fought with Gong Ziffin. Terrifying energy fluctuations exploded, and a terrifying mushroom cloud spread out in the sky above Ryuka. This was a phenomenon caused by the collision of powerful energy. Chapter 30, 429. Crisis Feng Xiao saw that Long Xiaotian was being held back by Gong Ziffin, and her eyes turned cold. She wanted to help Long Xiaotian, but she was stopped by a burst of bell-like laughter. In front of Feng Xiao, at some unknown time, a charming figure had blocked her way, and her bell-like laughter continued to ring out. "Get out of my way," Feng Xiao said coldly. The beautiful figure who blocked Feng Xiao's path was the sect master of Jade Cove, Yin Guyun. Yin Guyun walked slowly towards Feng Xiao with her enchanting cat-like steps and said with a smile, "Get out of my way? Dream on, but your opponent is me. If you don't get serious, I can't guarantee that I won't be merciful and kill you. Of course, for a beauty like you, I won't let you die a horrible death. I'll let you die a beautiful death," Yin Guyun said, and disappeared from where she was, and like a ghost, she appeared behind Feng Xiao and clawed at Feng Xiao's neck. It was soundless, but it flashed with a penetrating sharpness in the air. If this claw hit, Feng Xiao's head would be separated from her body. Feng Xiao's body burst into flames, and a thick fire shield formed behind her, blocking Yin Guyun's sneak attack. Then, Feng Xiao's delicate body turned slightly, and she brazenly attacked. Flames soared into the sky, spreading across the horizon, and it looked as if the entire sky was burning. Yin Guyun was not simple either, and her claws formed an extremely slender energy, and she waved it out fiercely. Suddenly, the air was filled with a dense array of energy blades, blocking the flames that filled the sky. At this moment, the entire Ryuka camp was in chaos, and the army was wantonly killing and destroying everything. Flames soared into the sky, and the magnificent buildings collapsed into ruins. In a short time, the number of Ryuka soldiers decreased, and corpses fell from the sky, forming a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Many of the Ryuka's higher-ups also began to fall. The Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society had more creator-level experts than the Ryuka, and the Ryuka's upper echelons were no match for them. As time passed, the upper echelons of the Ryuka would be wiped out, and the Ryuka would be wiped out from the face of the earth. While the two armies were fighting, Zhu Wenlin took out array flags and formed hand seals, setting up a killing array around the Ryuka camp. This Ryuka had some strength to be able to hold out against the combined forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society. But soon, Ryuka will fall. Hee. Zhu Wenlin sneered and threw out the last array flag. Suddenly, a terrifying killing intent surged within the Ryuka camp. A storm of killing intent swept out towards the Ryuka army, but the combined forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society were not affected at all. It was obvious that someone had set up a killing array around the Ryuka camp, and it was specifically targeted at the Ryuka camp. Lu Hantian, Long Xiaotian, and the rest saw the scene, and their faces changed drastically. Seeing the Ryuka army screaming in pain and agony, their eyes turned red. They really wanted to save these Long family clansmen, but they were entangled and ruthlessly suppressed. They couldn't even protect themselves, let alone save these Long family clansmen. Zhu Wenlin couldn't help but laugh heartily when he saw the Long family's army retreating step by step under the effects of the killing formation. Then, Zhu Wenlin's gaze locked onto Feng Xiao, who was being suppressed by Yin Guyun. "Bitch, how dare you offend me? Now, I'll let you know the consequences of offending me." Zhu Wenlin's eyes flashed fiercely, and he threw out the array flag in his hand. Instantly, 3 storms of killing intent rushed towards Feng Xiao. Jasper Dock sect master Inguyun was very powerful, and she was also a peak creator. Feng Xiao's cultivation was similar to Lu Hantian's, and she was only a mid-stage creator. In the battle with Inguyun, Feng Xiao was being suppressed very badly. Her face was pale, and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. If not for the fact that Feng Xiao was supported by the peak creator divine weapon that Zhuowen had left for her, she would have been defeated already. Puchi! Feng Xiao groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood, and she was forced to retreat. Inguyun also took a few steps back, and she looked at Feng Xiao with surprise. She didn't think that Feng Xiao would be able to last for so long. She looked at the bronze mirror in Feng Xiao's hand, and a trace of greed appeared in her eyes. She knew that Feng Xiao was only able to last until now because of this bronze mirror. This bronze mirror was definitely a peak creator divine weapon. Even she didn't have a divine weapon of this level. If she could obtain it, her battle prowess would definitely increase by a large margin. Just as Inguyun was about to attack again, she sensed 3 storms of killing intent behind her. Whoosh! The 3 storms of killing intent were extremely fast, and they swept past Inguyun and instantly blasted onto Feng Xiao's body. Feng Xiao's expression changed slightly, and she summoned her bronze mirror to barely block the 3 storms of killing intent. However, she was still injured and spat out a mouthful of blood. Moreover, she was forced to retreat again and again under the powerful force of the storms of killing intent. At this moment, Inguyun attacked. She appeared behind Feng Xiao like a ghost, and her jade-like hand blasted out violently, landing on Feng Xiao's back. Puchi! Feng Xiao could only barely block the storms of killing intent, and now she didn't have the strength to resist Inguyun. She was hit head-on and blood spurted out. Her face was unbelievably pale, and she fell heavily to the ground. The bronze mirror in Feng Xiao's hand flew out of her hand. Inguyun stared straight at the bronze mirror. She didn't continue to chase after Feng Xiao, but instead flew towards the bronze mirror. Feng Xiao fell to the ground, and her whole body was in pain. It was as if all the bones in her body were broken, and she couldn't move. Feng Xiao saw Inguyun chase after the bronze mirror and didn't continue to attack her, and she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But soon, Feng Xiao's expression changed. She sensed a terrifying killing intent that she had never felt before. She turned her head and saw Zhu Wenlin slowly walking towards her, his face filled with undisguised killing intent. Feng Xiao struggled to get up, but unfortunately her injuries were too severe, and she couldn't get up at all. She could only watch as Zhu Wenlin approached. Zhu Wenlin also knew that Feng Xiao's injuries were not light, so he was not in a hurry and slowly walked over. "Bitch, this is what you get for angering me. I heard that you are the birth mother of that bastard Zhuowen. Don't worry, I won't kill you immediately, but I will slowly torture you to death. I will return all the insults that bastard Zhuowen gave me to you, and I will pay you back double." Zhu Wenlin thought of Zhuowen, and his face almost distorted, ferocious and terrifying. Xiao, Long Xiaotian, who was fighting with Gong Zifan, saw the seriously injured Feng Xiao lying on the ground, and Zhu Wenlin, who was constantly approaching Feng Xiao. Long Xiaotian's face changed. He knew that Feng Xiao had angered Zhu Wenlin with a sentence before. If Feng Xiao fell into Zhu Wenlin's hands, she would die without a doubt. Thinking of this, Long Xiaotian's heart was full of anxiety. He roared, wanting to repel Gong Zifan and rescue Feng Xiao. Chapter 34:30. Solemn and stirring Long Xiaotian roared angrily. Seeing Zhu Wenlin approach Feng Xiao, he couldn't wait to rush to Feng Xiao's side. However, Gong Zifan wouldn't let Long Xiaotian succeed. He sneered and even provoked Long Xiaotian with words. "Die." Long Xiaotian roared. The blood in his body suddenly exploded as if it was burning, and his aura increased by hundreds and thousands. Long Xiaotian, slashed out with his saber. Instantly, the saber light exploded like a waterfall. Gong Ziffin, who originally had a mocking expression, felt the terrifying saber light in front of him, and his expression finally changed. Gong Ziffin raised the divine weapon in his hand, wanting to block Long Xiaotian's desperate attack. However, he soon discovered that Long Xiaotian's saber was too terrifying. He groaned and involuntarily flew backward, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Long Xiaotian's expression was even worse. The moment he repelled Gong Ziffin, he rushed toward Feng Xiao with bloodshot eyes. Is this guy crazy? He's actually burning his blood essence without any regard for his life. Isn't he afraid of death? After Gong Ziffin was repelled, he looked at Long Xiaotian's back with an extremely gloomy expression and chased after him. In that instant just now, Long Xiaotian had indeed burned most of his blood essence. His strength instantly soared to the peak of the god of creation stage, and his strength was even more terrifying than Gong Ziffin's. Of course, Long Xiaotian had to pay a great price for squandering his blood essence like this. After this, his cultivation base would drop. Moreover, if he continued to burn his blood essence, his life might even be in danger. After all, Long Xiaotian wasn't burning a small part of his blood essence, but a large part of it. He was completely disregarding his life. Zhu Wenlin was already close to Feng Xiao. A cruel smile appeared on his face, but soon the smile on his face froze. Zhu Wenlin suddenly raised his head. He saw Long Xiaotian rushing over without any regard for his life, and his eyes narrowed with fear. This guy is really crazy. He's burning his blood essence without any regard for his life? Zhu Wenlin snorted coldly and took out the array flag. Instantly, the surrounding killing array was activated, gathering all the killing intent in front of Zhu Wenlin. Then, it suddenly shot out and blasted toward Long Xiaotian. Long Xiaotian, and Long Xiaotian's sword art, the sword god of creation. The intense saber light was too terrifying. It actually broke through the storm of killing intent one after another. Zhu Wenlin's expression changed. He was a little surprised by Long Xiaotian's current strength. He was a little flustered and involuntarily took a few steps back. Yin Guyun, come and help me block this person's Guyun. Zhu Wenlin hurriedly urged Yin Guyun, who had just obtained the bronze mirror and was studying it. Yin Guyun was helpless. She naturally couldn't ignore Zhu Wenlin. After all, this person's background was not ordinary, and he had a good relationship with Sakyamuni. She didn't dare to offend this person. Yin Guyun's movements were very fast. Her charming body flickered in the air like a ghost, and in an instant, she appeared above Zhu Wenlin. Her hands formed into claws, and at the tips of her slender fingers, transparent and sharp claws formed from qi energy. At this moment, Long Xiaotian had already broken through the air. He raised the sword god of death above his head and fiercely slashed down. The sword light poured down like lightning. Yin Guyun was not to be outdone. She blasted out with her claws, and a powerful energy burst out, forming a huge shadow of a beast claw. It was mighty and golden. It was as if this beast claw was holding the sun. Boom! The terrifying saber light broke through the void and heavily blasted on the rising beast claw. Suddenly, the saber light and the golden light exploded, erupting with earth-shattering aftershock ripples. The surrounding space directly turned into nothingness and ceased to exist. Kacha! The saber light was too sharp. It directly broke through the beast claw and tore it into pieces, scattering into countless fragments. Puchi! Yin Guyun's face changed. The powerful aftershock burst out and blasted her chest, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood. She covered her chest and kept retreating. This guy? How much blood essence did he burn to be so powerful? Yin Guyun exclaimed. Zhu Wenlin's face was gloomy. He took out several array flags, and in an instant the surrounding killing array changed. The terrifying killing intent condensed into dozens of meters long blood-red blades. and they all blasted towards Long Xiaotian. The moment these blood-red blades fell on Long Xiaotian's body, they all exploded, and a bloody mist swept out. The power was great. Even the unstoppable Long Xiaotian, who had burned his blood essence, was stopped when these blades exploded. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face became very pale. However, Long Xiaotian roared to the sky and burned his blood essence again. The aura on his body rose again, and he forcibly resisted the countless exploding blades. Whether it was Zhu Wenlin or Yin Guyun, looking at the fearless Long Xiaotian in front of them, they felt their hair stand on end. It had to be said that Long Xiaotian was really ruthless. Not only did he hate others, but he was also ruthless to himself. After withstanding the blades, Long Xiaotian's cold gaze fell on Zhu Wenlin. He suddenly descended, and the sword in his hand was pointed at Zhu Wenlin's heart. Zhu Wenlin was frightened. His face was pale, and he kept retreating. He quickly pointed at Long Xiaotian and said to Yin Guyun, "Quick! Stop him!" Yin Guyun was also retreating. The Long Xiaotian at this moment was too terrifying. She didn't dare to take the initiative to block. "Sect Master Yin, you and I will stop this person together. He keeps burning his blood essence, and he is already at the end of his life. There is no need to be afraid of him." At this moment, Gong Zifan had already arrived. He took out the divine weapon in his hand and attacked Long Xiaotian. Hearing this, Yin Guyun's beautiful eyes flickered. In the end, she decisively made her move. Yin Guyun's jade-like hands grabbed the void, and her hands turned into claws and attacked Long Xiaotian. Yin Guyun and Gong Zifan joined forces, and their power was strong. They actually blocked Long Xiaotian's terrifying attack. Zhu Wenlin saw that Long Xiaotian was blocked, and only then did he feel relieved. He was a little scared now, and he didn't dare to touch Feng Xiao. He wanted to wait until Long Xiaotian was completely killed by Yin Guyun and Gong Zifan, and then he would make a move on Feng Xiao. He was really a little afraid that Long Xiaotian would go crazy and break through the joint forces of Gong Zifan and Yin Guyun and rush towards him. "Xiaotian!" Feng Xiao looked at Long Xiaotian, who was blocked by Gong Zifan and Yin Guyun. Especially when she saw Long Xiaotian's increasingly pale face, her tears fell like rain. She could see that Long Xiaotian had burned too much blood essence, and his aura was getting weaker and weaker. When the time came, Long Xiaotian would really die. Pucci, Gong Zifan, and Yin Guyun broke through Long Xiaotian's defense and smashed Long Xiaotian's chest. Long Xiaotian spat out a mouthful of blood and smashed onto the ground. His body twitched, and his consciousness was not light. His aura was also very weak. Gong Zifan and Yin Guyun didn't continue to attack. They just looked at Long Xiaotian with contempt. They could tell that Long Xiaotian had burned too much of his blood essence, and there were already side effects. In addition to the injuries on his body, there were also side effects. Chapter 34-31. Boiling with anger when Zhu Wenlin saw Long Xiaotian's miserable state, he was relieved. He slowly walked to the front of Long Xiaotian and stepped on Long Xiaotian's chest with his right foot. He sneered and said, "I was almost scared by you just now. I thought you were amazing. It turns out that you are just a useless coward." Zhu Wenlin was very proud and continued, "I heard that you are Zhuowen's biological father?" "That is Zhuowen's biological mother. That son of a bitch's parents are now in my hands. This is really karma. Although I can't find the whereabouts of that son of a bitch now. If that son of a bitch's parents are in my hands, then I will have fun. Don't worry, you won't die so easily. I will capture you and release the news to force the Zhuowen to appear. Then, when he comes, I will kill you in front of him. Haha! I really want to see what kind of expression that son of a bitch will have when he sees his parents being killed in front of him." Zhu Wenlin laughed loudly. His face began to become sinister. Gong Zifan and Yin Guyun looked at each other in dismay. They despised Zhu Wenlin in their hearts. After all, they were the ones who took care of Feng Xiao and Long Xiaotian. This guy took all the credit for himself. However, the two of them didn't dare to argue too much. After all, Zhu Wenlin's background is very strong. They can't afford to offend him. At this moment, the battle between the Beast King, Gates, Gate Master, and Lu Hantian has come to an end. Although Lu Hantian relied on his gilt battle armor to fight against the violent Jade Beast and was in an invincible position. However, the violent Jade Beast only wanted to end the battle quickly. It used a trump card that costed a lot. It actually punched through the gilt battle armor on Lu Hantian's body and pierced through Lu Hantian's chest. Then, it ruthlessly threw Lu Hantian to the ground. At this moment, the violent Jade Beast is holding Lu Hantian's neck with one hand and slowly walked over. The tyrannical aura on its body has not dissipated yet. Many cultivators in the surroundings don't dare to approach the violent Jade Beast. And the Ryuka's upper echelons were all defeated. Some are dead, some are injured, most of them were captured alive. And the Ryuka army was defeated by Zhu Wenlin's killing array. More than 70% of the Ryuka cultivators died and 30% of them were captured. It can be said that in this battle, Ryuka's defeat. Haha, this is a great victory. If it weren't for me, you might not have won. Zhu Wenlin stepped on Long Xiaotian, laughing proudly, high-spirited, insufferably arrogant. Immortal Master Zhu's array is unparalleled. This time, it is all thanks to Immortal Master Zhu. We will definitely report this matter to Lord Sakyamuni when we return. Yin Guiyun smiled and said with a flattering smile, Gong Zifin and the violent Jade Beast did not say a word. In fact, the three of them were not convinced in their hearts. However, there was nothing they could do. After all, Zhu Wenlin's identity was there. That is, these Ryuka remnants are really pitiful. But you don't have to blame me. You can only blame that Zhuowen. He dared to offend me and then ran away in fear. Until now, I still can't find him. Since I can't find that bastard, I can only vent my anger on his people and relatives. You can blame that bastard. Haha. Zhu Wenlin was very proud. The Ryuka people saw Zhu Wenlin insulting Zhuowen verbally and glared at him. In the hearts of all the Ryuka people, Zhuowen has a supreme status. They almost worship Zhuowen like a god. They will not allow Zhuowen to be insulted. Who are you talking about? Just as Zhu Wenlin finished speaking, an extremely cold voice rang out, resounding in the air above the ruined, long family encampment. Zhu Wenlin was now in high spirits and replied without thinking, Of course, I'm talking about that Zhuowen. That bastard is cowardly and only knows how to hide. Not only is he a bastard, but he is also a coward. So it's you, the bastard, who is talking about me behind my back. The illusory voice appeared again. Zhu Wenlin's face stiffened. His eyes were gloomy. He looked up at the sky and said, Who is it? Why are you still hiding? Come out. It wasn't just Zhu Wenlin. Yin Guiyun, Gong Zifin, and the violent Jade Beast, who were standing not far behind Zhu Wenlin, were shocked. They didn't know where the sound came from. It was as if the voice appeared out of thin air and did not belong to anyone. Zhu Wenlin had just finished speaking when he heard a slight gust of wind behind him. He was startled, and just as he was about to turn around, a gust of wind from a palm came whistling over and hit his temple hard. Pa! The crisp sound of a slap resounded. Zhu Wenlin was dizzy from the slap. He spun twice on the spot and barely managed to stand still. He stood still, his eyes filled with anger as he shouted, Who is it? How dare you hit me? Before Zhu Wenlin could finish his words, another palm strike landed on his face. This slap was so fierce that it directly broke Zhu Wenlin's cheekbone. His cheeks bulged and he looked very miserable. On the other hand, Zhu Wenlin fiercely fell to the ground like a dead pig, his entire body trembling. Zhu Wenlin angrily roared. He supported himself with both hands and tried to get up, but he quickly realized that his back was being stepped on by a foot. Then he directly fell face down and fiercely sank into the ground. He kept struggling, but could only let out muffled groans. All this happened in an instant. When everyone reacted, Zhu Wenlin was already under the foot. He was like a pig waiting to be slaughtered, shaking his body violently. Yin Guyun, Gong Ziffin, and the violent jade beast had goosebumps all over their bodies. They took out their respective divine tools and looked warily at the fierce middle-aged man who was stepping on Zhu Wenlin's back. When this fierce-looking middle-aged man appeared, they actually didn't notice him at all. It was as if this person had appeared without a sound, or perhaps he had been standing there all along. This feeling was too strange. However, the three of them knew that it was not their feeling that was wrong, but the strength of the fierce middle-aged man in front of them was beyond their imagination. "Who are you?" Yin Guyun asked with fear in her beautiful eyes. The fierce middle-aged man ignored Yin Guyun's question. Behind him, a whirlpool appeared and a man in a purple robe walked out. After the man in the purple robe came out, he looked around in surprise. Then his eyes fell on the middle-aged man and asked, "Brother Zhua, why did you suddenly call me out? What's the matter? Brother Ziwei, do me a favor. Guard me. I need to save people. Also, stop everyone in the area and don't allow them to leave. If anyone dares to leave, kill them without mercy." The fierce middle-aged man said to the man in the purple robe with a murderous look in his eyes. The man in the purple robe glanced at Yin Guyun and the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Earth Spirit Society, and Beast King Gate in the distance. He nodded and said, "It's just a group of ants. I'll kill them all for you, so you don't have to do it yourself. These people must be killed by me. There's no need to trouble you, Brother Ziwei." Zhuo Wen suppressed his anger and said. The man in the purple robe looked at the middle-aged man who was suppressing his anger. He nodded and did not say anything. Instead, he stood guard around Zhuo Wen. Yin Guyun and the other two were nervous. They felt a suffocating power from the man in the purple robe. This was definitely an expert who was far stronger than a creator. Are you Zhuo Wen? Chapter 34-32. Purple Star Sovereign's strengthening Guyun scream immediately caused Gong Ziffin and the violent jade beast to react. They also heard Purple Star Sovereign calling this middle-aged man Brother Zhua. Plus, this middle-aged man attacked for Ryuka. The only person they can think of is Zhuo Wen. Although they have seen Zhuo Wen's image and know that Zhuo Wen has the appearance of a young man, he is not the middle-aged man in front of them at all. But they know that this middle-aged man in front of them is in disguise, and the probability that this person is Zhuo Wen is very high. At this moment, Zhu Wenlin, who is being stepped on by Zhuo Wen, also heard Yin Guyun scream. He roared, "Zhuo Wen, you bastard, you only know how to sneak attack me. If you have the guts, fight me fair and square." Zhuo Wen's eyes were cold, and he directly kicked Zhu Wenlin. Zhuo Wen did not show any mercy. The moment his foot landed, the whole ground trembled violently, and countless cracks spread from the ground in all directions. Zhu Wenlin coughed up blood again and again, and his whole backbones caved in, looking very terrible. Zhuo Wen ignored the half-dead Zhu Wenlin and came to Long Xiaoyan's side. Seeing Long Xiaoyan's miserable appearance, the killing intent in Zhuo Wen's eyes became even colder. He took out the best healing pill he has and gave it to Long Xiaotian. Long Xiaotian is almost half dead, and Zhuo Wen spent a lot of effort to feed him the pill. After taking the pill, Long Xiaotian's breathing stabilized a lot, but he is still in a coma. "Wenna? You are Wenna?" Feng Xiao, who is not far away, is seriously injured, but her consciousness is still very clear. She looked at Zhuo Wen, and her beautiful eyes were confused at first, but soon revealed a look of excitement and surprise. Zhuo Wen helped Feng Xiao up and brought her to Long Xiaoyan's side, and also fed her the best healing pill. After taking the healing pill, Feng Xiao's complexion became much better, and she could move freely. "Mother, take care of father first. I will go save the rest." Zhuo Wen whispered to Feng Xiao. Feng Xiao calmed down, and she looked deeply at Joan and said with a little worry, "When Green Jade Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society's allied forces are too many. Mother, don't worry, these are nothing to me." Joan smiled, said, although Feng Xiao's beautiful eyes were still a little worried. She looked at Purple Star Monarch not far away, and she felt an extremely powerful pressure from him. This is a powerhouse that far surpasses the Creator. She knows that Joan has such a helper. Even if he is surrounded by the allied forces of Green Jade Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society, his life is basically not in danger. Joan stood up and looked at the violent jade beast in front of him. To be more precise, he looked at Lu Hantian under the violent jade beast's feet. At this moment, Lu Hantian is seriously injured, and he is crawling on the ground. The bright golden battle armor on his body is dim, and there are many cracks in many places, looking very terrifying. Lu Hantian is also a little unconscious, and his eyes are closed like a corpse. When the violent jade beast saw Joan looking over, its hair couldn't help but stand on end. Although he could not sense any powerful aura from Joan, this person was able to casually summon an expert like Crate Myrtle Star, who had a terrifying oppressive force. Obviously, this person's strength was definitely not weak. At the very least, he was stronger than them. His name is Lu Hantian, my brother. You beat him, right? Joan walked over slowly, passed by Purple Star Monarch, and walked towards the violent jade beast. The killing intent in his eyes was not concealed. The violent jade beast's pupils shrank, and it said coldly, "So what? Winner takes all. His strength is inferior to mine, and he is trampled under my feet. Isn't this natural?" Joan walked over slowly. He nodded and said, "You didn't say much. Winner takes all. You are stronger than my brother, and it's right to trample him under your feet. But you have trampled on the wrong person. Today, I will also trample you under my feet, and then make you kneel in front of my brother and apologize." With that, Joan stomped his right foot, and his figure suddenly became illusory. The violent jade beast's expression changed slightly, and its entire body surged with terrifying energy. Yin, Guyun, and Gong Ziffin, who were standing not far away from the violent jade beast, also took out their divine tools, wanting to intercept Joan. Unfortunately, their attacks missed, and they only hit Joan's afterimage. Pucci! Suddenly, a fist appeared on the violent jade beast's chest. The fist punched into the violent jade beast's back and came out from the violent jade beast's chest. Blood splattered out, dripping and terrifying. The violent jade beast's eyes widened. It couldn't believe it. It didn't even know how Joan punched, and it was already hit. Joan slowly pulled out his fist and stepped on the violent jade beast. Ignoring the dumbfounded Yin Guyun and Gong Ziffin, he slowly squatted down and fed the healing pill to Lu Hantian. After sensing that Lu Hantian's breath had completely stabilized, Joan heaved a sigh of relief. Attack! Yin Guyun and Gong Ziffin exchanged glances, took out their divine tools, and attacked Joan's exposed back. Bang! Joan didn't resist, and the two divine tools smashed into his back, releasing blazing divine light. Immediately after, Yin Guyun and Gong Ziffin found out that their divine tools had collapsed, but Joan's back was emitting a sparkling light, and it was actually safe and sound. How strong is this body? Divine tools smashed onto it, and there wasn't even a trace left behind. Isn't this too abnormal? Yin Guyun and Gong Ziffin felt their hair stand on end, and they couldn't help but retreat. We have to retreat. This person is too terrifying. He's not someone we can deal with. Yin Guyun and Gong Ziffin communicated with their divine sense and reached an agreement. They decisively took out their flying divine tools and wanted to escape. When the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society saw Yin Guyun and Gong Ziffin escape, and the violent jade beast was beaten half to death, they were all in an uproar, and they had no intention to fight. Seeing Yin Guyun and Gong Ziffin escape, the corner of Purple Star Sovereign's mouth curled into a mocking smile. He stretched out his right hand, and suddenly, A terrifying black flame erupted from the void, turning into a sea of fire and instantly engulfing Nguyen and Gong Xifen. Nguyen and Gong Xifen were engulfed by the black flame, and they let out shrill cries as they were completely burned to ashes. Even the flying divine tools under them weren't spared. The surroundings were silent. Nguyen and Gong Xifen were sect leaders of Tao Palace level forces, and their strength was at the pinnacle of the creator level. Yet, they were destroyed by this person with a wave of his hand. What kind of power did this require? At the scene, many of the captive Ryuka people's eyes lit up with excitement when they saw purple star monarchs move. They already knew that the middle-aged man was Zhuowen in disguise, and the purple-robed man was Zhuowen's companion. Chapter 34-33. Submission seeing Nguyen and Gong Xifen being incinerated by the black flames. The Green Jade Dock, the Beast King sect, and the Earth Emanation Society's allied forces were in an uproar. They all sucked in a breath of cold air and were stunned. 2 Pinnacle Genesis stage powerhouses had been killed with a flip of the hand before their eyes. This was a little too terrifying, wasn't it? The allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society were all shocked. They were all trembling, and their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. Crate Myrtle Star waved his sleeve, and the black flames covering the entire sky were all collected by him. Then his cold gaze landed on the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society. I'll give you a chance. Let go of the Ryuka people and submit to the Ryuka. Become the loyal servants of the Ryuka. I'll spare your lives. Crate Myrtle Star said coldly. His voice wasn't loud, but it rang in everyone's ears like thunder. For a moment, the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society were all hesitant. Their eyes were full of struggle. Everyone, don't be afraid. We've already destroyed the Ryuka army. We have so many people. Why should we be afraid of these 2 people? Yes, we have so many people. Even if we're not as strong as these 2 people, we have too much of an advantage in numbers. We can crush them with numbers. Among the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society, there were people who immediately urged them to attack and take down Zhuowen and Crate Myrtle Star. However, as soon as these heckling cultivators spoke, several sword lights flew past and blasted them into blood mists. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sword lights cut through the allied forces and landed beside Zhuowen again. The sword lights were very powerful. Only then did the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society see clearly that the source of these sword lights was 3 divine swords. They were floating around Zhuowen. These 3 divine swords were the Thunder Fire Sword, Death Sacrifice Sword, and Blood Immortal Sword. If you're not afraid of death, you can attack me. I'll take it all, Zhuowen said calmly. Instantly, the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society fell silent. Those who had been slain by the sword projections were all powerful beings of the allied army, and some of them were even gods of creation. However, all of them had been reduced to mincemeat by the 3 divine swords. This person could easily take the head of an expert from an army of tens of thousands. It was enough to show how powerful and terrifying this person was. The Alliance army even suspected that if they went all out, not only would they not be able to kill these 2 people, they might even be killed by these 2 people instead. Those who submit shall live, those who resist shall die. Zhuowen continued to emphasize. His voice was filled with a strong, murderous aura. His whole body was filled with a terrifying bloody light. The allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society were all frightened by Zhuowen's aura. They trembled. Then, some cultivators put down their weapons and expressed their willingness to submit to Ryuka. After this, the other cultivators followed suit. Of course, not everyone in the allied forces was willing to submit. Some cultivators who were unwilling took out their flying divine artifacts and began to flee. However, these cultivators were killed by the three divine swords before they could leave Ryuka's territory. The rest of the cultivators who wanted to flee trembled when they saw the fate of the cultivators who were killed. They did not dare to flee anymore. Instead, they expressed their willingness to submit to Ryuka. The violent jade beast, who was originally under Zhuin's foot, saw the many allied forces submit. Its face was ashen. It knew that it was completely finished. There was no chance for it to turn the tables. But soon, the violent jade beast felt a blazing killing intent. Its scalp went numb. When it looked up, it saw Zhuin's cold gaze. "You have two choices now. One is to apologize to my brother and submit to Ryuka. The other is to die." Zhuin said indifferently. The violent jade beast's eyes were red. It growled, and a blazing light erupted from its body. "I would rather die than submit." The violent jade beast roared and self-destructed. The bright light instantly enveloped Zhuin's entire body. When the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society saw this scene, they were all moved. Their eyes were filled with hope. They hoped that the self-destruction of the violent jade beast could completely kill Zhuin. But soon they were disappointed. They saw that the self-destruction energy was suppressed. Then, Zhuin appeared in front of everyone intact. Zhuin clenched his right hand. Suddenly, the self-destruction energy completely dissipated. "You're just a creator. What's the use of self-destruction?" Zhuin sneered. Looking at this scene, the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society all turned pale. They no longer had the slightest intention to resist. Zhuin walked back to Zhu Wenlin and knocked him out with a punch. Then he used energy to imprison him and threw him into the great world. This Zhu Wenlin was from the Alchemy Array Tao domain. He wanted to refine the Six Desires Spirit Congealing Pill, but he still lacked a divine medicine. He planned to go to the Alchemy Array Tao domain to find it. This Zhu Wenlin could be his guide. He didn't plan to kill this guy yet. Next, Zhuin returned to his original appearance and told his true identity. All the Ryuka people were extremely excited. They all greeted Zhuin. Feng Xiao was pleasantly surprised. She hugged Zhuin tightly. Long Xiaotian and Lu Hantian were seriously injured and were still unconscious. Under Feng Xiao's command, the Long clan began to rebuild their encampment in an orderly manner. As for the Green Jade Dock, the Beast King sect, and the Earth Emanation Society's allied forces who had surrendered, they were locked up in the dungeons and dealt with later. "Mother, how is grandfather?" Zhuin asked Feng Xiao. Previously, he received a message from Long Xiaotian. He learned that Long Xiangding was attacked by a spy and suffered serious injuries. He fell into a coma. He was very worried about Long Xiangding's safety. "Father is in a bad state. You should go and see him." After Feng Xiao ordered people to bring back the unconscious Long Xiaotian and Lu Hantian, she took Zhuin to the largest pavilion in the Ryuka base. After entering a room deep within the pavilion, Zhuin saw the old man lying on the bed, who was on the verge of death. He scanned the old man with his divine sense and sighed. Long Xiangding's injuries were indeed serious, but it was not to the point of being incurable. Zhuin took out several top-grade healing divine pills and fed them to Long Xiangding. At the same time, he channeled his heavenly energy into Long Xiangding's body, causing Long Xiangding's pale face to become much rosier. His originally hurried breathing also became much more stable. Zhuin sighed and said to Feng Xiao, "Mother, grandfather is fine for the time being. Next, he just needs to take one of these healing pills every day. He should be able to wake up in a few days." Feng Xiao took the jade bottle, and her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. She looked at Zhuin and said, "I didn't expect you to be so amazing after being away for so long. Not only can you take out such precious pills, but even your friend is so powerful. Your friend's strength is probably already at the Creator realm. Your cultivation should also be at the Creator realm. Speaking of this, Feng Xiao said with some worry, this time the allied forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society were defeated. The sect leader of the 10 Ultimate Een Corp sect, Sakyamune, will soon know. I'm afraid that the 10 Ultimate Een Corp sect will send people again, and even the Nadi Shiva will come personally. The Nadi Shiva is said to be at the middle stage of the Master Realm, and with that strange dead man flower, his cultivation is breaking through very quickly. I'm afraid he has broken through again. Chapter 3434, going to the 10 extremes, Een Corp's Sechuan smiled and said, Mother, my friend is called Crate Myrtle Star. His cultivation is not only at the Creation Master level, but also at the late stage of the Tongtian Master level. He is extremely powerful. My cultivation has also reached the middle stage of the Tongtian Master level. If the Nadi Shiva really dares to come, I'll make sure they don't return. When Feng Xiao heard this news, she covered her cherry lips, feeling incredulous. She was completely shocked by Zhuowen's words. She did not expect Zhuowen and Crepe Myrtle Star to have such high cultivation. Good. When your cultivation is so high, Mother is happy for you, Feng Xiao said happily. Zhuowen smiled. He had only revealed the cultivation of his original body. If Feng Xiao knew that Zhuowen's clone was much stronger than his original body, she would probably be even more surprised. However, the implications of the Pangu sacred body were too great. Zhuowen would not easily reveal it, because it would be bad for Feng Xiao to know about it. Mother, the host region is no longer safe. I plan to move Ryuka to my great world. The laws in my great world have been completely perfected, and the heavenly energy there is even richer than the outside world. In addition, the great world has resources that surpass the Dao Palace level. It's enough to make Ryuka a true behemoth that surpasses all the Dao Palace level forces. Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Feng Xiao was a little confused. She subconsciously felt that Zhuowen was bragging, but she did not show it. Instead, she smiled and agreed. Zhuowen knew that Feng Xiao did not believe what he said, but he did not care. He knew very well that the resources in the great world would only be more abundant than what he said. Thinking of this, Zhuowen waved his sleeve and brought Feng Xiao into the great world. When Feng Xiao saw the scenery in the great world, the piles of resources, an environment full of rich heavenly energy, she was completely stunned. Only then did she understand that Zhuowen was not bragging. Instead, what he said before was very modest. Zhuowen brought Feng Xiao out of the great world and smiled at Feng Xiao, who was a little bit Xiao. Your great world is really incredible. If Ryuka can really stay in it, we will definitely develop in the shortest amount of time. Even the 10 extremes Een Corp sect will be suppressed by us, Feng Xiao said excitedly. Mother, I'll have to make arrangements for the Ryuka. I plan to bring all the members of the Long family into the great world, said Zhuowen. No problem. Feng Xiao quickly nodded in agreement and then left in a hurry. Just as Zhuowen was making arrangements for the Ryuka to enter the great world, Sakyamuni was sitting cross-legged on a futon in a secret room of the 10 Ultimate Een Corp sect. In front of him was a blood pool that emitted the smell of blood. At this moment, 4 figures were floating above the blood pool. These 4 figures were lying flat in midair with their eyes closed, but their auras were extremely vast. However, among these 4 figures, 3 of them were already dead. They were emaciated and had become 3 dried corpses. Sakyamuni slowly opened his eyes, glanced at the 3 dried corpses, and sneered. The 3 sect masters of Jue Ri Temple, Fallen Star Mountain, and Shukong Palace are really useless. After I absorbed all their cultivation, I still couldn't break through to the late stage of Tongtian Master. At this point, Sakyamuni waved his sleeve, and the 3 dried corpses fell into the blood pool and were completely submerged in it. Tan Xinghua, you're an expert in the middle stage of Tongtian Master. I hope you don't disappoint me. Sakyamuni looked at the last figure and stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, an extremely beautiful flower bloomed in the middle of Tan Xinghua's head. This flower was the dead flower. In the center of the dead man's flower stamen, golden energy began to gush out one after another. It gushed out like a torrent and poured into Sakra's palm. Then it followed his palm and entered his body. Sakyamuni hurriedly activated his cultivation method and began to absorb this energy to break through to the late stage of Tongtian Master. Time gradually passed, and soon Sakyamuni's aura became more and more vast and finally reached its peak. Just as Sakyamuni was about to break through, Tan Xinghua's corpse completely turned into a dried corpse. The dead flower bloomed above his head, and no more energy was transmitted. Damn it, just a little bit more, and I would have broken through smoothly. How could you let me down at this time? Sakyamuni roared in exasperation. No, I have to break through. Scarlet Mountain Villa's sect leader, Scarlet Xiao, let you go last time because Tan Xinghua came to save you. This time no one can save you. Just be my nourishment and let me break through. Sakyamuni muttered to himself and left the secret chamber. He was ready to immediately go to Scarlet Mountain Villa, capture Scarlet Xiao, and absorb her cultivation to break through to the late stage of Tongtian Master. When Sakyamuni left the 10 Extremes Yin Corp sect, Zhuowen, who was in the Ryuka camp, had already put all the Ryuka people into the Great World. After Long Xiaotian and Lu Hantian woke up, they realized that Zhuowen had solved the Ryuka crisis. They were overjoyed and gave Zhuowen a bear hug. After that, Long Xiangding also woke up and was in good condition. After hearing about Zhuowen's deeds, Long Xiangding praised him and said that he had given birth to a good grandson. Zhuowen chatted with his family and friends in the Great World for a long time before leaving. He also brought Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia with him. Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia stood respectfully beside Zhuowen. The two of you, the sect leader of the 10 Extremes Yin Corp sect, Senki Yin, has fallen. Sakyamuni now controls the entire 10 Extremes Yin Corp sect. Logically speaking, the rightful successor should be Ghost Plume, the eldest disciple. Now that Sakyamuni has indiscriminately seized the sect leader's position, I'm afraid he has ulterior motives. Zhuowen said calmly. Ghost Plume's gaze turned cold. He bowed respectfully and said, My lord, Ghost Plume is willing to listen to your every command. Good. You and Yin Wuxia will go to the 10 Extremes Yin Corp sect for me and seize the sect leader's position. But don't worry, I will attach the Great World to your body. If anything happens, I will help you. Zhuowen said calmly. Zhuowen planned to go directly to the 10 Extremes Yin Corp sect. If he had the chance, he would destroy the 10 Extremes Yin Corp sect. Of course, he did not plan to go against the 10 Extremes Yin Corp sect openly. Instead, he planned to use the identity of Ghost Plume to enter the 10 Extremes Yin Corp sect and destroy it from the inside. Chapter 34-35. Seizing the throne in the 10 Ultimates Yin Corp sect. Sakyamuni ordered his right-hand men to guard the sect. Then he took out his flying divine artifact and flew toward the Scarlet Mountain Villa. Ever since the Scarlet Mountain Villa's sect master, Scarlet Xiao, had been severely injured by Sakyamuni, she had been hiding in the Scarlet Mountain Villa and activated the sect-protecting formation. Many of the 10 Ultimates Yin Corp sect's subordinate sects had already surrounded the Scarlet Mountain Villa. The people of the Scarlet Mountain Villa could not leave. Last time, Sakyamuni had been injured in the battle with Tan Xinghua, so he did not continue to attack the Scarlet Mountain Villa, giving Scarlet Xiao some time to breathe. Now his injuries had healed, and his cultivation was even more powerful. He was on the verge of a breakthrough. His essence, energy, and spirit had reached their peak, and he planned to completely take down the Scarlet Mountain Villa. Thinking about how he could successfully break through after absorbing Scarlet Xiao's cultivation, Sakyamuni licked his lips in excitement. After Sakyamuni left the Scarlet Mountain Villa, Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia both arrived at the 10 Ultimates Yin Corp sect. Are you Senior Ghost Plume and Elder Ian Wuxia? When the gatekeeper saw Ghost Plume and Ian Wuxia, he immediately recognized them. Ghost Plume nodded and said, "Today I came to the 10 Ultimates Ian Corpse sect to take back my things. Back then, Sect Master Sun had already appointed me as the next Sect Master, but I didn't expect Sakyamuni to take it away. Move aside and let the naughty Shiva come out. I want to question him properly." The gatekeeper's eyes flashed, and he said helplessly, "Senior Ghost Plume, we always thought that you had fallen and were killed by Zhuowen. We didn't expect you to still be alive. The Sect Master has already left the sect and went to the Scarlet Mountain Villa." Ghost Plume grinned and said, "Haha, that's good. Let me in. Today, I'm returning to the sect to take back my things." With that said, Gui Ling ignored the obstruction of the cultivators guarding the gate and entered the sect. The gatekeeper was helpless. Ghost Plume was the eldest disciple of the Incorp sect, one of the 10 Ultimates. In the past, he was even one of the 5 great freaks of the host region. He was very famous, and his prestige among the younger generation of disciples was even higher. Although Ghost Plume had been missing for a long time, Ghost Plume's prestige in the sect was still quite high. The moment Ghost Plume stepped into the sect, 2 figures appeared from the depths of the sect. These 2 figures were withered old men, and their auras were very vast. They were both early-stage Skirich lords. These 2 old men were unknown elders of the 10 Extremities Ian Corp sect. They were later promoted by Sakyamuni and helped to raise their cultivation. With the help of the Death Flower, they finally broke through to the Master of Heaven and became Ghost Plume's left and right arms. Ghost Plume. Among the 2 old men, one of them was a short-haired old man. His eyes were bright as he looked at Gui Ling in surprise. Ghost Plume looked at the 2 old men and said indifferently, "So it's Elder Tian and Eldarin. I didn't expect your cultivation to rise so quickly. You're already early-stage Skirich lords." Ghost Plume naturally knew these 2 old men. The 10 Extremities Ian Corp sect had 10 elders, but they had all been killed by Zhuowen. The 10th elder, Ian Wuxia, had submitted to Zhuowen. These 2 old men were Tian Kongtai and Zhenghao. Back then, their strength was second only to the 10 great elders. The short-haired old man who spoke just now was Tian Kongtai, and the long-haired old man was Zhenghao. This is all thanks to Sect Master Sakyamuni's efforts. Ghost Plume, since you're back, go back to your pavilion. When the Sect Master returns, he will naturally make arrangements for you." Tian Kongtai said, his eyes full of arrogance. He did not care about Ghost Plume at all. Ghost Plume's eyes were gloomy. He said coldly, "Elder Tian, I didn't come back today to wait for Sakyamuni to make arrangements for me. I came back today to take back my position as Sect Master." Back then, Sect Master Sun had already said that the next Sect Master would be me. Don't tell me you didn't know. As soon as he said this, many of the gathered disciples were in an uproar. They did not expect Ghost Plume to take the position of Sect Master of the 10 Extremities Ian Corp sect as soon as he returned. Was this a joke? Of course, there were also some disciples who were happy and hoped that Ghost Plume could take the position of Sect Master. This was because the 10 Extremities Ian Corp sect had been turned into a mess by Sakyamuni. Although they had produced many experts, they had all evolved rapidly under the effect of the Death Flower. Moreover, after consuming too many Death Flowers, their minds would become muddled. Moreover, during Sakyamuni's reign, many disciples had mysteriously disappeared. This caused a huge commotion among the disciples, who believed that the disappearance of the disciples had something to do with Sakyamuni. Ghost Plume, are you dreaming? With your cultivation at the late stage Lord of Creation Realm? And that Ian Wuxia behind you, who is only a peak Lord of Creation Realm, what qualifications do you have? Tian Kongtai sneered, and Zhenghao also coldly agreed. That's right. After Sect Master Sakyamuni took over, he developed our 10 Extremities in Corpse sect to its current height and made it the #1 sect in the host region. Can you do it? With your cultivation, it's too weak. You actually want to take over the position of Sect Master? Are you dreaming? Ghost Plume was very calm. You mean that as long as I'm strong enough to defeat Sakyamuni, I can take over the position of Sect Master? Haha, with your cultivation, how can you be qualified to challenge Sect Master Sakyamuni? If you can defeat me, you can become the new Sect Master. Unfortunately, do you have the strength? Tian Kongtai sneered, and Zheng Hao frowned and sent a voice transmission to Tian Kongtai, telling him not to act on his own. Tian Kongtai replied, I can take this opportunity to get rid of Ghost Plume. When Sect Master returns, we will have done a great service. And Zheng Hao heard this and nodded. He also felt that Ghost Plume was not a match for Tian Kongtai. The difference in their cultivation was too great. Gue Ling was very calm. He ignored Tian Kongtai and Zheng Hao, who were communicating with each other. Instead, he spoke loudly to the 10 ultimate In Corpse sect disciples around him. Everyone heard it. Tian Kongtai said that as long as I defeat him, the position of sect leader of the 10 ultimate In Corpse sect will be mine. I hope that someone will not go back on his words after I win. The disciples around were in an uproar, but they all shook their heads secretly. They felt that Ghost Plume was overestimating himself. He actually wanted to challenge Tian Kongtai, who was the sect master of heaven. Defeat me? That's impossible. Tian Kongtai sneered and continued. Tell me, where do you want to die? Ghost Plume narrowed his eyes. He could see the killing intent in Tian Kongtai's eyes. He knew that Tian Kongtai wanted to kill him here and now. Here it is. This will be your burial ground. Ghost Plume said calmly. Fine, then I won't hold back. Go to hell. Tian Kongtai laughed loudly. His right hand formed a palm and blasted out, landing on Ghost Plume's head. A powerful shockwave spread out, causing the surrounding space to distort and collapse. The disciples of the 10 Extremities In Corpse sect all retreated and consciously opened up a space for Ghost Plume to fight with Tian Kongtai. Gue Ling stood motionless and looked at Tian Kongtai at the same level as if he was indifferent. Tian Kongtai snorted coldly. In his heart, he had already sentenced Ghost Plume to death. However, when Tian Kongtai's right palm landed on the ground, a sword light shot out from Ghost Plume's body and slashed out. Puchi! Tian Kongtai's right hand was slashed into a bloody mist. Then, the sword light carried a powerful lightning and fire energy. The lightning and fire energy was like maggots that latched onto bones, instantly enveloping Tian Kongtai. Chapter 34-36. The call from beyond the starry sky. The entire place was silent. Before any of them could react, Tian Kongtai had already been killed. When they finally reacted, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They stared at the Ghost Plume in disbelief. The Ghost Plume was still standing in the same spot, unmoving. Around the Ghost Plume was a divine sword surrounded by lightning and fire. Just now, Tian Kongtai had been reduced to dust by this divine sword with a single slash. And Zheng Hao, who had his arms crossed and was ready to watch a good show, was stunned when he saw Tian Kongtai killed in a single move. He sucked in a breath of cold air and quickly retreated. However, not long after Zheng Hao retreated, the thunder fire sword shot out again. Wherever it passed, lightning and fire spread to the horizon. It was as if the entire sky was filled with lightning and fire. Trash, why are you running? Eat this dragon lord sword. I'll let you know why the flowers are red. The thunder fire sword was very fast and closed in on Zheng Hao in an instant. The thunder fire sword's artifact spirit, Xiao He, was cursing and swearing. His words were very vulgar, and the surrounding people were petrified. The artifact spirit of the divine sword was a little too weird. Each of its insults was more interesting than the last. It was simply too overwhelming, and Zheng Hao's expression changed. He only had time to summon his artifact to block the Thunder Fire Sword. Unfortunately, his artifact was only a creation-grade artifact. The difference between it and the Thunder Fire Sword was too great. It shattered in an instant, and the Thunder Fire Sword pierced through Zheng Hao. The lightning and fire energy exploded, and Zheng Hao died without a complete corpse. In the blink of an eye, both Zheng Hao and Tian Kongtai were killed. The 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect was silent. All the disciples were in disbelief. Does anyone have any objections to me taking over the position of sect master? The ghost plume looked around. His voice was not loud, but everyone heard him clearly. Everyone from the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect lowered their heads. The ghost plume was too powerful. He had killed Zheng Hao and Tian Kongtai, 2 early-stage Transcending Heaven Masters, in an instant. They had all speculated that Ghost Plume really had the strength to contend with Sakyamuni. Moreover, Ghost Plume taking over the position of Sect Master was justified. Back then, Senki Yin's sudden death and Ghost Plume's disappearance were considered dead. It was reasonable that the position of Sect Master would fall to Sakyamuni. Ghost Plume's Sect Master was Ghost Plume. Ghost Plumes now. The 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect. Of the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect master. Sect master. Sect master. Even though Gui Ling looked calm on the surface, he was extremely nervous in his heart. At the same time, he had not expected that the fight for the position of the Grand Master this time around would go so smoothly. He had been subdued so easily. This was to be expected. Sakyamuni had been tyrannical during his reign. Many disciples had suffered. If not for Sakyamuni's strength, many disciples would have left the sect long ago. Moreover, Sakyamuni had only joined the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect for a short period of time. Many disciples were unhappy that he had become the sect master in such a short period of time. However, Sakyamuni's pressure prevented them from speaking out. Ghost Plume was the eldest disciple of the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect. Senki Yin had once publicly acknowledged that he had the qualifications to succeed the position of sect master. In addition, Ghost Plume had displayed great strength. Therefore, it was easy for everyone to acknowledge Ghost Plume's position. If it had been anyone else, it would have been impossible for them to join the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect master so easily. You may leave for now. Ghost Plume entered the sect master's hall. After dismissing everyone, Zhuowen emerged from the great realm. Greetings, master. Ghost Plume said respectfully. Ghost Plume, you've done well. In the coming days, I will set up a killing array in the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect and wait for Sakyamuni's return. Also, spread the news of the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect master. When the naughty Shiva hears about it, they will definitely rush over. When that time comes, we will catch a turtle in a jar, Zhuowen said calmly. Gui Ling nodded his head in acknowledgement and was extremely respectful. After speaking, Zhuowen left the sect master's hall. At the same time, he disguised himself as a fierce-looking, middle-aged man. As for his identity, he was appointed by Ghost Plume as the law-enforcing elder of the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect. His position was neither high nor low. Zhuowen had deliberately asked Ghost Plume to arrange this, so that he would not stand out too much and attract the attention of others. Zhuowen spent a few hours to break through most of the arrays in the 10 Absolutes in Corpse sect master's hall. At the same time, he spent a few days to set up the entire sect's Great Realm Array. This Great Realm Array would have no problem trapping a master of Heaven Ascension. After setting up the Great Realm Array, Zhuowen returned to the room that Ghost Plume had arranged for him and continued to study the True Alchemy Array records. Ever since he had learned that there was always someone better than him, he had become increasingly aware of his own insignificance. He wanted to continue to evolve until he broke through the shackles of the starry sky and achieved true freedom. As for Sakyamuni, Zhuowen actually didn't take him to heart. His strength had grown to such a level, and no matter how extraordinary Sakyamuni's talent was, Zhuowen was confident that he could completely kill Sakyamuni. In Zhuowen's eyes, his current opponents were of a higher level, such as half-step heaven-crushing cultivators, the primal chaos that threatened the starry sky, and even the true powerhouses of the 100 realms that the heavens splitting axe had mentioned. At the same time that Zhuowen's horizons had been broadened, he had become much less hostile and interested in his former enemies in this starry sky. At this moment, the Scarlet Mountain Villa had already been breached by Sakyamuni, and the sect leader of the Scarlet Mountain Villa, Scarlet Beauty, had been captured alive by Sakyamuni. Moreover, Sakyamuni had planted the Death Flower's seed in her body. At this moment, Sakyamuni also received news that Ghost Plume had returned and killed Tian Kontai and in Zhenghao, regaining control of the 10 Absolutes in-corp sect. Ghost Plume? Heh, he's just a clown. After I break through, I'll tear Ghost Plume to shreds. Sakyamuni's face was full of disdain. A few days later, Sakyamuni sat in the main hall of the Scarlet Mountain Villa, while Scarlet Beauty floated in the air with a pale face. At this moment, a beautiful flower was slowly growing out of Scarlet Beauty's Tianling acupoint. The death flower had matured. Sakyamuni opened his eyes and stretched out his right hand. Instantly, blazing energy surged out of the death flower and entered Sakyamuni's body. Sakyamuni's aura continued to skyrocket. In the instant that his aura reached its peak, there was a loud boom, and his body began to transform. At the same time, the energy in his body also underwent a qualitative change. Sakyamuni roared, and countless gusts of wind swept out. The main hall of the Scarlet Mountain Villa collapsed, revealing Sakyamuni's arrogant figure. Haha, I've broken through. I'm already at the late stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension. My Tao root has also completely evolved and reached perfection. I feel like my Tao root has surpassed the shackles of this starry sky. Sakyamuni's eyes were filled with confusion. He was very curious about his Tao root. In the instant that his Tao root had evolved to perfection, he had felt a calling from beyond the starry sky. Chapter 34-37 Ice Fiend, King Above the Starry Sky. There was a mysterious world domain. That place was filled with layers upon layers of planes that formed a spiral shape that constantly grew. Within these spiral planes, there were nearly 100 worlds. Each world was extremely vast, countless times larger than the starry sky Zhuowen was in. The spiral plane was one of the legendary 100 Outer Realms. The 100 domains existed in the chaotic void. They were in a spiral shape, as if they were constantly rotating. And what was even more shocking was that below this spiral plane was a grand tree that emitted a purple light. The roots of this tree were so deep that they couldn't see the bottom. It was unknown where its roots were. The branches were lush and purple, leaves grew from them. They emitted a faint purple light that contained a mysterious and powerful strength. This tree was simply too large. In front of this tree, the 100 domains were as small as ants. It had to be known that each of the 100 domains was far larger than the starry sky. They were truly large places, but in front of this tree, they were as small as ants. It was simply inconceivable. The branches and leaves of this purple tree were filled with fruits. They were the color of the starry sky. They were sparkling and translucent, emitting a fragrance. These fruits were simply too similar to the starry sky. If one looked carefully, they would be able to see through the surface of these fruits. Inside these fruits were twinkling stars, as if they were stars in the starry sky. Above the purple tree and the 100 domains, at the peak of the endless chaotic void, there was a star that had existed since ancient times. This star was very large, but it was very far away from the tree and the 100 domains. Its surface emitted a multicolored light. What was even stranger was that on the surface of this star, there were shadows surging. It was as if some mysterious supreme being had cast their shadows onto it. The auras of these shadows were too terrifying. All of the living beings in the 100 domains could only look up at these shadows. Moreover, they didn't dare to look directly at these shadows. These shadows were too powerful. If they didn't have enough strength, they would go blind if they looked directly at them. Some even had their souls collapse and perish. Just like that, this strange star hung high in the primal chaos void, emitting gorgeous colors. He was very far away, but its radiance illuminated the entire primal chaos void. At this moment, in the 100 domains of the outer realm, in a plane filled with a cold and eerie aura, this was the otherworldly ghost clan domain. Within the realm of the otherworldly ghost clan, there was a glorious yet lonely palace. A middle-aged man with disheveled hair inside the hall seemed to have sensed something and suddenly opened his eyes. The middle-aged man's face was as white as snow, and there was a blue mark between his eyebrows. He was wearing a crystal clear ice armor. Someone has actually awakened the undying Tao root of our race. Moreover, he's a lowly person from the lower realm. How rare! The middle-aged man's pupils were also blue and emitted a demonic light. He looked pensive as he muttered to himself, "The undying ancestral Tao root is too important. If he's able to mature, then he'll become a king of variant ghosts. We must find this person." The middle-aged man's eyes flickered. He pinched the air with his right hand, and a ray of blue light shot out. In next to no time, a young man with a snow-white face and a suit of ice armor knelt on one knee before the middle-aged man. "Ice Fiend King, may I know why you've called this subordinate?" the young man asked in a low voice. "Someone has awakened the undying ancestral Tao root. I need you to help me bring that person back to our realm," the Ice Fiend King said indifferently. The young man's eyes focused, and then he revealed an expression of surprise. The undying ancestral Tao root was the most powerful ancestral Tao root of their otherworldly ghost clan. Any clansman with such an ancestral Tao root would become a supreme expert in the future and stand at the peak of the 100 domains of the outer realm. They might even become terrifying figures that might enter the primeval star system. However, undying ancestral Tao roots were truly too rare. It had already been tens of thousands of eras since a genius with such an ancestral Tao root had appeared in the otherworldly ghost clan, and there hadn't been another genius with an undying ancestral Tao root since then. But now, such a genius had actually appeared once more. Even the young man couldn't help but tremble with excitement. "Ice Fiend King, please tell me the location of that lord. Which realm is it? I'll definitely bring that person back smoothly." The young man was very excited. The Ice Fiend King's expression was gloomy and he sighed lightly. "That person isn't in the 100 domains of the outer realm. He's in a starry sky fruit in the lower realm." "What? A lowly person from the lower realm? How could an undying ancestral Tao root appear in the lower realm?" The smile on the young man's face instantly faded greatly, and he was slightly dumbstruck. It might be a living being with the bloodline of our otherworldly ghost clan that unintentionally awakened such an ancestral Tao root. Even though the probability is very small, it has indeed appeared now. The Ice Fiend King was slightly helpless. He glanced at the young man before him and said in a low voice, "Bing Hui, I might have to trouble you this time. You need to sever your cultivation and sneak into the lower realm to search for the clansman with the undying ancestral Tao root." The young man's pupils constricted slightly when he heard this, and he revealed a hesitant expression. He was a genius with pretty good natural talent in the otherworldly ghost clan. He was a half-step, heaven-crushing realm cultivator when he was born, and he'd advanced to the heaven-crushing realm after cultivating for 3 eras. If he severed his cultivation and fell from the heaven-crushing realm, it would be equivalent to severing his future, and it would be impossible for him to crush the heavens again in the future. After all, the living beings in the 100 territories outside the lower realm were too formidable. If their cultivation was too formidable, they would be rejected by the primordial tree, and they would definitely die once they entered the lower realm. If a heaven-crushing realm expert wanted to enter the lower realm, then they had to sever their cultivation and lower their strength to below the heaven-crushing realm. Bing Hui, if you bring that clansman back this time, I promise to find a way to reconstruct your cultivation, and I'll take you as my disciple and focus on fostering you. The Ice Fiend King noticed Bing Hui's hesitation, and he promised solemnly. Bing Hui revealed a surprised expression when he heard this. The Ice Fiend King was one of the 3 kings of the otherworldly ghost clan, and he possessed an extremely lofty status. Moreover, he was the only king amongst the 3 kings that didn't accept disciples. Now, the Ice Fiend King was actually going to make an exception and take a disciple for the sake of that lowly person with the undying ancestral Tao root, and it was obvious how much importance the Ice Fiend King attached to that lowly person. Bing Hui is willing to search for the clansman with the undying ancestral Tao root for my lord. Bing Hui spoke solemnly. Haha, good, Bing Hui. You'll be my eldest disciple from now on, and the clansman with the undying ancestral Tao root you find will be your junior brother. However, this matter absolutely cannot be made public. If the other clans know that a genius with the undying ancestral Tao root has appeared in our clan, they'll probably try to sabotage us. This matter can only be carried out in secret. The Ice Fiend King said in a low voice, As my lord commands. Bing Hui definitely won't disappoint you, and I'll find my junior brother. Bing Hui said respectfully, Take this talisman. You can sever your cultivation without feeling any pain when using this talisman. Moreover, the side effects will be greatly reduced, and it'll be easier to recover in the future. The Ice Fiend King took out a faint blue talisman and tossed it to Bing Hui. Bing Hui was very straightforward, and he used the talisman as soon as he received it. A faint blue light instantly enveloped Bing Hui, and then Bing Hui let out a miserable cry.